Okay, we got Byan Green in today. Thank you for coming in, Bryan.
Thank you for having me. I feel like we've already done an episode that we should have recorded the last hour.
Yeah, we have about an hour of material that probably should have done, but whatever.
I'm used to it. Being a podcaster, you're used to just dumping shit into the no man's land.
Right. Yeah. So you got the TCB podcast.
Yep.
You got the comedy.
The commercial break. Yep.
And that's like comedy kind of guys.
It's just a comedy chatcast. It's me and my friend Chrissy Hoadley. I call her Hoadley. And we sit and we shoot the shit. It's the most ridiculous thing. It's just a bunch of absurd bullshit. Because our senses of humor, I think, are similar. And the style is absurd improv. So, you take one simple story from your life, from the news, pop culture, and then you make it ridiculous and you go down a rabbit hole. And that's the style. It seems to be resonating. So we've done okay for ourselves. And I enjoy it. I enjoy the medium very much.
And you do real estate, which So you have your own, that's what you do during like the day, you do the real estate?
Yeah. So the real estate is the main money driver in my house, right? My wife's not giving me permission to jump off the real estate train quite yet.
Not yet. Huh?
No, she's too used to that money. But I got into real estate probably about 10 years ago, 11 years ago, coming out of the crash. And we finance construction projects. So we don't actually finance it out of our own pockets, but we would be called advisors on the
like a broker, advisor type of thing. Okay.
Yeah. So somebody's going to build, one of these fancy high rises, and they need debt, equity, and they come to us and we go source that capital from multiple different places, hedge funds, banks.
How fun is that, doing that all day long and then doing a podcast and then getting that out?
I
and then
like the
chase
chase of the deal.
Yeah.
I really do. I'm a talker, right? And so I like negotiating because you use your mouth. Your mouth is your tool. It's your instrument. It's like a doctor with a scalpel. You use your mouth. You go in there. You slice and dice. You give a little. You take a little. So I like that, and I have a philosophy about life in general that it's kind of we mediate life. We are constantly negotiating life with our friends, with our partners, with everybody. And so I just find it to be natural to do that. But because I'm a podcaster on the side, and now making money doing that, right? One of the few podcasters I'm lucky enough, grateful enough to be making money at it. I'm more excited about that than I am about real estate. I wish that was something that I could do full time, but you have to be careful because this kind of popularity can come and go so easily. And so it makes me a little bit nervous to say, oh, okay, just let me do the podcast and then lose all of that momentum you have with the real estate, because it takes a long time to make those connections, to get those leads, to have those deals come in and you can work a deal for a year, 2, 3. These are hundreds of millions of dollars worth of real estate. So, like a deal we're working now, it's $320 million. It could take a year and a half to negotiate and get done. If I pick up and I leave and just go do the podcast, well, then what the fuck do I do with the $320 million deal? Right. And you can imagine that the commission on a $320 million deal is not a bad payday if you can close it.
What, if you don't mind me asking, just rough estimate, just on average?
The industry standard or the advisory standard is a point, right? Is 1 point on whatever capital you raise. And you get closed when the deal is consummated between the financier and the developer. Oftentimes, that will be negotiated down in a deal, especially deals over $50 or $100 million, because it starts getting a little ridiculous, right? And so either the financier or the developer will often come and say, guys, $3.5 million. And you'll say, a year and a half of my life, right? That's what you'll say to them. But at some point, you have to be pragmatic about it. You have to say, well, $1.5 million is a lot of money, more money than most people will make their entire lifetimes. So if I can do that, and I don't want to give the impression that I make $1.5 million a year. I don't, right? Because they take a long time to do, and I can work 5 of them, and maybe one of them closes.
Right.
Because if they're coming to me, it means that they need help. There's something about the deal that needs to be negotiated. It's not, the guys that have built 20 of these towers, they don't need Bryan to go get money. They know where to get the money. Right?
So in other words, you're like the fixer. So when there's a problem,
I come in.
You get the headache.
Yes, I get the headache.
You get the headache to work on for a year and a half, and hopefully it goes through. And if it does, you'll get somewhere $800K to 1.5 once it go through. Yeah, because 1.1 is 1%.
It's 1%. Yeah, so if on a $320 million deal, you'd be looking at $3.5 million.
$3.5 million, right?
Yeah.
They're not going to give you $3.5 million, right?
the one of two things happens. Either it's unlikely they'll give that to you at the end. They want to renegotiate. And even the lender might say to you, listen, at some point, this is a little ridiculous, right? We understand you're important to the deal, and I am. But $3.5 million, you're making the most profit that anybody will make in this deal for 5 years, right? You're taking $3.5 million away from the deal right at the closing table. Like, what about $2.5 million? How does that sound, right?
Yeah.
And so you learn to play ball, and again, you're going to get negotiated. It's just one of those things that tends to happen. The other thing that real estate is notorious for is the deal often comes through multiple channels. And when the deal comes through multiple channels, no one along the way is willing to give up their position. So in order to get a deal done, you often have to negotiate with other, they call themselves advisors, but really what they are is they're just people who happen to know of a deal, and they called somebody who knows how to get it done. So oftentimes, if you got $1 million paycheck, oftentimes 200,000 is going to this guy, 100,000 is going to that guy, right? So, these are just facts of life in real estate. Anybody who's worked in real estate knows this, but that's how the advisory business works.
Right. Plus, like you just said, even if you did get the 3.5, by the time you pay this guy that helped you connect you with the deal and this and that, now you're probably down to say 2. When it's all said and done with the taxes,
you make $1 million.
Then after that, you're negotiating because they don't want to give you 2. So you make about $1 million. And it takes a year and a half, but it's good money, and it's good. Now, when these people go get these like massive houses, right?
Yeah.
A lot of them, because I had a couple real estate people, and they don't have good credit because they pay cash all the time.
Yeah.
So when they go buy $100 million house or $300 million, whatever it is, commercial property, if their credit isn't good, they're done for, right?
Well, there's credit and then there's cash, right? And so cash is always king. We know that. So even if someone, let's say let's take, for example, Howard Stern, who we were talking about, right? And he has $250 million in the bank. He's going to buy a $50-60 million property down the street. Barclays, Wells Fargo Private Banking, other institutions like that might be willing to take on a mortgage like that. But that is what we call a unicorn property, right? It's a unicorn property, and if the market goes south, good luck finding someone to buy that thing for $50-60 million. So it's a hard deal to do in the first place, even for Howard Stern. But what Stern can do is say, but I have $350 million in the bank, and I got $650 million worth of stock options. So even if his credit is 0, because he's never used his credit, right, which actually would make a lot of sense for Howard Stern, he can go and he can negotiate a loan. Donald Trump is the same way, right? And I don't want to get into politics, but Trump is the same way. He had bad credit. He was bankrupt. He had a history of not paying people, good, bad, or indifferent. We don't know. I don't know what the real truth is, but the banks continue to deal with him because he has leverage, and leverage is key in real estate. Doesn't matter what your credit score is when you're doing business at that level. If you're buying a $52 million house, if you got $150 million in the bank, someone's willing to give you $30 million to purchase a $52 million.
Because you have something to back it up, and an asset or assets that will get the underwriters who approve it. Right?
So maybe they don't like the house. The deal, the house deal is not important to them, right? But what they do know is that Howard Stern would be a good client. He's probably good for it, right? And they're making 2.5-3.5% on $52 million. I mean,
And what about the portfolio? You can go and say to your next client, I just sold Howard Stern a house down the street. I mean, that looks pretty fucking good.
The real estate agents are the ones who really make a killing in real estate, if I'm being honest. So I've been doing this for a long time at a lot of different levels. At single family residential is where I started. What they refer to as SFR, so that'd be you or me going to buy a home, right? And then we moved into kind of smaller commercial deals that would be, maybe a small strip mall with a CVS on the corner. And then we just kind of, more and more people started asking us for different kinds of deals, and they got bigger, and then we just started to make relationships. The reality is that the real estate agents all along the way are the ones who will never get talked down out of their commission, because that's on a contract. It's just a long history of I get paid 3.5%, I get paid 3%,
period.
I get paid, period.
Yeah.
I'm not negotiating. I have a real estate agent. I love her to death. She's been my friend for a long time. And she says, I will not negotiate my fee don't even ask me, right? And she'll say it to anybody, right? It's one of the first things she says to a potential client. I'm not negotiating my fee. My fee is non-negotiable. Because I think, after a few deals with her, I was like, oh, well, let's talk about, I don't negotiate my fee. Do you want me working less hard for your deal? And so I could say that to my clients. I could say, do you want me to work less hard for your deal? But the truth is there's a million other advisors that would go do that deal. So you got to be careful, right? And when you're in with a real estate agent, there's a contract. It's just a little bit of it's a sticky wicket, so to speak. The real estate agents are the ones who make money.
But I would do exactly what you did. Like when they wanted to negotiate the point, I mean, you'd be a retard not to negotiate it, because you could still walk away with $1 million or 1.5. And just like you just said, there's 100 other
guys
Bryans,
behind me,
right?
Yeah.
So that you can be replaced.
That's right.
You're good, but there's people just as good as you too. Just like you're good at what you do with your podcasting and everything else.
There's a million other podcasters that are great at what they do. Yeah.
Now, before we get into all that, with this real estate market right now, like everything's through the roof.
Yes.
That real estate's through the roof, gold's through the roof, gas is up. Forget about all that. But the real estate, don't you think this is a bubble that's going to pop? I mean, it cannot withstand. To me, you're in the market, so you know more than me. I don't know shit. I just listen to people that are involved in it. But don't you think this is going to pop? Because it can't sustain like this.
It's a great question that I wish I had the answer to.
I'm just asking your opinion.
I think my opinion is there are real forces driving this market right now, right? We're not talking about derivative mortgages that are being sold, that we're not talking about zero credit score loans, no doc loans, although those are coming back, right? We're not talking about, that's not a market driver. And the market driver is not $100,000 houses, right? Real estate is very pricey right now because there are real costs associated. So in other words, the wood is expensive, right? Just 2 months ago, the wood was almost 300% more expensive than it was a year and a half.
Wow.
300%. Wow. You could buy you could go buy a 2x4, right? For like whatever, $26 or $18 at Home Depot.
Canada, because it's coming from Canada.
Yeah, Canada and China and a lot of these places, and all the shipping stopped because of COVID. It all just stopped. And then here's what people aren't thinking about. Some people smarter than us are thinking about. The reason why the market is gone crazy is it costs a lot to build a house right now, and labor is hard to find. But what's really going on is that if during the pandemic you are at home all the time, your home becomes the most important thing to you. Either you don't want to leave it, or you see this as a good time to get a new home because you could see this as a potentially new way of life for a long period of time. There are less houses, older houses, second homes coming on the market. So when one does come up, people scramble to buy it because less houses are going up for sale. I'm talking about houses that are already lived in are going up for sale. And there are not enough new construction homes being built because it's too expensive to build them. So I think the market forces are real that has driven this high. I do think it has to cool down, probably sooner rather than later. But who knows if the government continues to pump a bunch of money into the economy and prop everybody up, and we go through another round of
08.
Yeah. If we go through another 2020, if we go through another everybody locked down,
it's over.
It's over. All right, it's either over or it's going to continue to stay propped up, but at some point it's going to be over.
Now, see, I think in your market, because you're dealing with 50 million and above, 30 million and above, you're not going to have a problem, right? Because if somebody's got 30 million, you'll be fine with what you're doing. But the guy selling a $200,000-$300,000 house that is now $500,000, it has to pop. I personally don't see how it could possibly withstand. The heavy shit, like the numbers that you're doing, that's always going to be there because they got money. They're always going to have money. This doesn't affect them at all, other than they can't go out or whatever, or if all this inflation and everything else. But I'm more so referring to the regular real estate agent. I think they're going to get killed. Foreclosures out the ass, and the rich guys buy them all up and flip them.
Well,
Good move.
Listen, that's cyclical, right? The banks always win. The banks always win. Right? They always win. And that's because they're playing a game that's age old, and everything's cyclical. And they know it's going to come. They know there's a black swan event, a market slowdown, or a bubble is going to happen in the real estate market, because that's what happens in the real estate market forever and ever, amen. And then the bank comes and takes the property, right? And then the sharks come and they suck it all up, and then here we go, and on. And
right? They sit on it until the economy comes back, and
That's
then they flip it.
Hi-ho, off to work we go, right? That's just what happens.
Right, because all these people are buying the Bitcoin bullshit, they're going to get killed, and in my opinion. And, these houses that they're buying that right now they can afford, well, if they shut down, too much inflation.
Yep.
And I don't want to get into politics either. I'm just saying what's happening. 1.9 trillion here, another trillion there. I mean, you're printing money like leaves falling off of a tree. At some point, there's going to be a negative impact from all that. And when that happens, in my opinion, is that anybody that went and spent money on that house because now's the time, or they got their SBA check or whatever, and they went and dropped it on the house. Well, now you got a nicer house. Well, now you need nicer furniture. Now you need this. Now you need that. And you think that this is going to withstand, and then you're giving more SBA loans. And next thing you know, now it pops. Now you're fucked. Now you're going to go foreclosure. Now the guy with the $50 million just sitting in the bank, he's going to get that $300K house for $150 just from the bank, because the bank doesn't care, right? They're getting what they need.
They're getting paid back.
They're getting paid back.
Yeah.
And then he sits on that $150 house till everything comes back up, and then he'll sell it for $300 and he doubles his money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But the little guy, I think, will get fucked.
The little guy always gets fucked.
Yeah.
That's the reality. That's the story of America. It's the story of America. The little guy always gets fucked. And it's hard. It's really the story of the world, right? And it's hard to get up from under that. And that's why, we all look at these swan song, stories of people who go from, zero to hero, and, I was living on the streets and now I'm a billionaire and all this other stuff. It is infinitely difficult for that to happen in the particular society that we live in, because the little guy always gets fucked. The little guy with bad credit pays 15,000 times more than the guy with $50 billion who can afford it. Always, right? The banks, the credit card companies, the mortgage companies, the car leasing people, everybody says, you're not worthy of my money unless you pay me a whole bunch more money, right? When he can't afford it, because that's putting that guy in more shit. But the guy who has $50 billion, and I'm not talking about politics. I'm not talking about redistributing wealth. I'm not talking about any of that bullshit. I'm just saying the guy with $50 billion who could afford a 7.5% loan from the auto dealer, right, will pay nothing for his car ever.
Right.
Now, maybe that's because he made smarter choices. Maybe that's because mommy and daddy left him a bunch of money. Maybe that's because he got, he bought a bunch of Facebook stock when everyone told him to, right? Whatever the deal is, the little guy is always going to get screwed in the end, and everyone's going to get rich on their backs. That's what happens. It's sad, but it's true.
It's just reality. Now,
it is.
When do you think this pops?
It can't last more than another 5 years. That's for sure, right? And that also depends a lot, I think, on what happens with coronavirus. It depends on what happens a lot with the current the political, the economic and political winds, right?
Yeah.
If people start losing their jobs because coronavirus slows the market down, whether that's fear, real, whatever. If people start losing their jobs, housing prices. See, people don't lose their jobs in 2020. They lost their jobs, but they got another job with the government. And the government paid them to sit at home, right? And that was the right thing to do, in my opinion. They had to. Quite frankly, it kept us all out of the real shit. That would have been a lot worse in 2008 if 17% unemployment or whatever it was, I can't remember. That would have been crazy. It would have been way worse than 2008. Mayhem. But death in the streets, right?
Yeah.
There's already death in the streets. Yeah, I mean, with coronavirus, right? But there would have been true chaos if the government, if we can manage to find our way through coronavirus, and I believe that stimulus will help in the end, right? And I mean by like infrastructure projects. In my opinion, I don't know much about this, but in my opinion, we need, because our roads and our bridges and our railways and our airlines and internet and all that, they need to be tightened up. We're like a third world fucking country.
Well, that's not happening. That order got wiped, and that's not political. I'm just saying the fact.
Yeah,
that
fair enough.
That that funding is wiped.
It's if we can manage to find a way through coronavirus.
Yeah.
I think the markets and people continue to have their jobs. I think the market stays relatively stable until the next election, right? Okay, and when the next election happens, then I think we go through this again.
Now, let me hit you with this one, and we'll get off this.
Yeah.
Before it does go down a wormhole with political bullshit, right? So now you said those factors that could affect it.
Yeah.
But I think one of the biggest factors, other than the inflation that's going on, is the fact of the minimum wage. Okay? Now, you raise it to $15 an hour or whatever.
Yeah.
And I own a company, I'm getting a robot.
Yes.
And you can see it happening right now in McDonald's, touch screen, less people. So you can get a robot. Say you're like a McDonald's, a Wendy's, a franchise, right? Say you buy 100 of them. You could probably get a robot that can do a lot of shit for $20,000 in bulk.
Yeah.
Per robot, but okay.
I agree.
Or you could pay 9, 10 people $15 an hour. Maybe they show up, maybe they don't. What are you going to do? I'm buying a robot. I mean, it's a business decision. It's not about the person. It's for my business and my family. You do that, now the unemployment rate.
It's a real challenge that we as a society, and I'm not just talking about the United States of America, I'm talking about most of the civilized world, has to deal with, that AI and robotics are quickly going to replace humans in a lot of the jobs that they currently have. And I don't just mean menial work, I mean real work.
Yes.
Engineering, architecture, whatever. It's coming for us, right? With people that are much smarter than us, that have a lot more money than us, are currently creating the things that are going to replace us in our everyday job. So now here's a question, and it's not a political one, and I don't even want an answer, quite frankly, because then we will go down the rabbit hole, right? But here's a question. Then what do we do? Do we decide that universal pay is the right way to go? That everybody can at least live, have a house, have health care, have food in their mouth for their children, right? And figure out how they can be useful to society in some way, whether that be public service or whatever, right? School crossing guard, whatever. Or do we just let it take over, and then there is fucking chaos in the streets?
No,
because then...
I will answer that.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so what you do is you follow Elon Musk.
Yeah.
And if you listen to him, what he says, you have you have Space Force, you have this task force.
Yeah.
Well, you open up a separate division for AI.
Yeah.
You keep it under control. You keep Google under control.
Oh, I agree. Yeah.
You keep that. You listen to him. That's what you do. So now you have your military, you got your Space Force. Well, now the next evolution is AI. That's what it's going to be.
Yeah.
Everything evolves. It's just the way of life. So the way you combat that is you come up with a AI force, right? Where there's regulations to what you can and you can't do.
Yes.
Because that universal thing, to me personally, my opinion, and I respect anybody's opinion otherwise, no way. Look at Canada. It's a mess. I got friends over there. It's a shit show.
Yeah. Listen, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
That's just my opinion. I don't know enough.
I've got friends in Western Europe where they pay 58% taxes, right? And half of them are bitching, and the other half love it, right?
Right.
It's a much more relaxed society. I'll tell you that. Everyone's at the beach all day long. I don't know what's going on over there. Who has a job, right? And I love some of these countries that I visit. But you can clearly see that there are parts of that system that just don't work. They're broken, right? They're not the utopia that some people here in the United States like to think they are. We always think the grass is greener. And I agree with Elon in one sense. There needs to be an ethics control on AI so it doesn't get out of control. But I'm just talking about if you and I are working at whatever job, like you said, McDonald's, right? And the robots come in, and you own a McDonald's, and somebody comes to you from Boston Technologies or whatever, and they come in and they say, for $10,000, I'm going to replace your burger flippers and your order takers, $10,000 a piece, right? Shit, really? Sorry, Bob and Betty. Yeah, well, that's just the way it is. What do those people do? I mean...
Well, that's not the person's fault. It's the person's fault who... You can't pay somebody at McDonald's $15 an hour. Nobody in the right mind is going to pay that.
Well, yeah, and even the argument about minimum wage, right?
Yeah.
I think there are valid points on both sides. But if a robot does come replace you, and that's what you do in life, right? Because not everyone who works at McDonald's is slated to be something else besides working at McDonald's. It's a job. It's a job, right? Our dads, our grandfathers, they came over here, they put fucking shoes on horses, sitting in shit all day long. And that's what they did their entire life. It doesn't mean they were bad people. It doesn't mean they were unintelligent people. It doesn't mean they were shitheads. That's just what they did, right? So the guy flipping burgers at McDonald's, he's a cog in the wheel. He's just as important as the guy funding construction real estate, right? In some way, shape, or form. But if someone comes and replaces him, and then he's got nothing else to do except sit around and stew or on the streets, I mean, that to me is one of the biggest challenges that we have as a society, is figure out how we marry technology with our everyday lives. And I'm talking about labor and ethics and everything else, and get through it without just total chaos. I mean, total chaos. I think it'll make some of the things that are happening in our world today look like we'll be, take me back to, Trump versus Biden. Take me back to it, right? I wish those days were upon us.
To me, it's very simple. Just like everything has happened ever since there was humans and everything else.
Yeah.
You adapt.
Yeah.
If AI comes in and replaces me, well, I have to adapt.
Yeah.
So now what do I do? Okay, maybe I was meant for McDonald's, but that's no longer there. Just like that shoe that the guy put on a horse. Nobody fucking does that, right? So you got to adapt. So now you get into AI. You get into, because somebody's got to make the fucking thing. Somebody's got to program it. So you have to adapt.
Someone's got to clean it. Someone's got to service it. So I don't disagree with you. And I also don't think that universal pay is the only way to, it's just like a panacea, like, let's just pay everybody and everything will be fine. But I think if all of these things happen so quickly, like a lot of technology does, right?
And it's moving.
Bro. It's moving, right? My 3-year-old knows how to use an iPhone better than I do.
Yeah,
and that's the truth, right?
Yeah.
So if these things move in a blink of an eye, this all happened. 15, 20 years ago, you and I we had to walk into the living room with the long cord phone from the kitchen to have a private fucking conversation, right? Now I can hide in the attic with my iPhone.
We had beepers.
Yeah, I had beepers too.
Yeah.
If this happens so quickly and you can't unscrew what's been screwed, and there is nothing else for anybody to do, not anybody, but most people to do, right? It's just a couple of people who work on robots. I'm thinking like very futuristically, but it's a thought that I've had. Like,
see, I don't think it's very futuristic. I think it's within the next 5 years, especially with the approval of the how do I not remember this? The thing that Elon's coming out with, where in the back of your skull, Neuralink.
Oh, Neuralink. Yeah.
So the first stages are like for Alzheimer's, if you're paralyzed, all that. That's about to come out in a year. It's under FDA. They're looking at it. It's already been submitted.
It's crazy.
The next one is the one where they pump the chip in, and you're as fast as a Mac Pro, not a Mac Pro, like the Mac Pro that's $6,000.
Yeah.
So now you don't even need Google.
Yeah.
You can, this chip, which it's already done, but the holes that you have to swing through to get it to be approved to do it is hell. So that's probably more down the future, but it's done. And now it will be your choice. Do you want to get the chip and put it in the back of your head and you're as fast as that computer? You don't, you can boom, 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 boom. Or, do you not get it?
Well, do you want to be a normie?
And that's what it will come to. And it's a good way, if they allow it, to combat the AI. That's why I think they should have like a AI task force. Otherwise, I think we're fucked. And it's going to be, some of us are going to be fucked. You're an entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur. Somehow, some way, a guy like you, a guy like me, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people that won't, and they're fucked.
Yeah, they're fucked.
And it's game over.
It's game over. And, for me, at this stage in my life, right, I think we have to think about those people who it's over for, because we will very much be affected by them.
Well, we will, and that's why I'm so for an AI task force, so that you're not protecting guys like me and you. You're protecting the other guy. And if you have that, then you have limitations. Like Apple started to do with the update where when you go anywhere, do you want this to track you? The mail's IP's address is hidden. So Apple's made that move to forward their sales, obviously. They could care less, but they're forwarding their sales by doing that.
As one of the largest companies in the world, Apple takes seriously ethics, right? Now, is it I think some of it's talk, right? I have to do it because it's good for sales, right? And I think some of it is just kind of built into like the DNA of that company, right? Steve Jobs, had some feelings and thoughts about how technology was going to affect people's lives. Now, he's probably the most responsible for bringing some of this shit on.
All of it.
Making it sexy, making it cool, and making people interested in it. But he had some thoughts.
Boundaries.
Yeah, he had some boundaries, right? He was a fucking Buddhist, right? Which,
Buddhists are monsters.
What's that?
They're monsters.
Yeah.
Those boys, Buddhists. Woo.
I've studied Buddhism a lot, and it's
good for you.
It's good for you, right? And it's being mindful and all that other stuff. He had some of the right, makeup to be the guy leading that company. And even though they've done a lot of shitty things, and we can go down the list, some of the things that they've done lately, like in podcasting, like bring it back around to podcasting. In podcasting, Apple says you can now opt out. They're going to let you know if a podcast like mine, The Commercial Break. I use a third-party analytics system that tracks when someone downloads, and then so let's say you're using Spotify. I'm using Spotify to download The Commercial Break, right? Spotify knows how much money I make, my college education level. They bring together all of this data because that data is important to advertisers and it's important to Spotify. So Spotify knows how much you make generally. They know how old you are generally. They know whether you lean this way or lean that way, just like Facebook does, Google, all of these companies do, right? LexisNexis, they all have this big brain, and they're paying attention to Tommy and what Tommy likes and what Tommy's all about, and they know it. Apple's now saying, I'm going to let someone know if a third party is tracking that information. So if you go to The Commercial Break and I'm tracking that information for my advertisers, Apple's going to let you know about it, and they're going to allow you to opt out of it.
Yeah, right. As the three choices.
Correct. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So now, when I go to sell to an advertiser, right, which I don't do, I have an ad network, but when the ad network goes to sell to an advertiser, they're not going to be able to give them that information about certain people who have opted out. And I imagine most people who listen to podcasts will probably figure out how to opt out eventually, right? They're pretty smart in general. And so now what, right? So I can't tell you whether they're male or female. I can't tell you what age group they're in. I can't tell you how much money they make.
Yeah.
All I can tell you is they listen to my show. That's it, right? And so now an advertiser has to make a decision based on the less information. Am I upset about it as a podcaster? Not one fucking bit. Because you know what? I also don't want to be tracked and monitored on everything that I do. I don't want Spotify knowing how much I make. I don't want them knowing how many children I have and what their names are, all the other stuff. I understand it's probably out there somewhere and some big,
they're brain. Just building AI. You know that.
Yeah,
they're collecting information just for AI.
LexisNexis has been doing this.
I threw them out the window once I realized they were recording. I had them. And they were pretty cool. That was it.
Yeah.
What were you going to say? Oh, you're good? Oh, okay.
So, podcasts are now coming down. Everybody all these websites in the United States are going to be like they are in Europe. You go to Europe, you go on a website. It says, here are the cookies that are tracking. Before you even get to the website, it says, here are the cookies that are being tracked by this website. You want to opt into them. So it'll say your age, your demographics, where you are, what page you're going to next, what page you went to last, right? Blah, 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 blah. Google's been doing this for years. They have a shitload of information on everybody who uses it.
And they're just building AI. That's all they're doing.
That's all they're doing, right?
They say ads. Sure, it's ads, but it's more so AI, in my opinion.
It's AI to serve you ads because that's how they make money, right? But that AI will have other applications that they then will branch out and do when that has more money in it too. So you go to Europe and you can opt out of all this shit every time you go to a website, right? You'll know when interacting. It's a law that the European Union put into place about 3, 4, or 5 years ago, something like that. And so when I go to Europe, or you go to Europe or whoever, you can now opt out of that shit. Well, the United States is now putting in place some of these very similar laws, right? And I think it's good. I think it's good for us. I think it's good for us to take a step back from everybody tracking you for whatever fucking reason
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. It's not the United States. It's the company that's choosing to give you that. Because if I have an Android, you're not getting that pop-up.
If the United States enacted a law, and that law now says that you as a consumer have the right to know if someone is tracking you. So now if you have a website, right, or a server, a host, those hosting, those domain platforms, those hosts, those servers, that website, whatever it is, some of them have preemptively done this. They've said, and I see it pop up all the time now. It says, do you accept the cookies?
Yeah, but if you have an Android phone that's running Android, you're not getting that pop-up.
Oh, you're not getting that pop-up. If you have an Apple, at least...
If you have an Apple, yeah.
If you have an Apple, like if I go to any website, right now, most websites, I'd say 75% of the websites, right? But as a part of that law, that's what podcasters are now having to deal with also, right? Is that people can opt out of being tracked. If they opt out of being tracked, then we have less information to give the advertisers. If we have less information to give to the advertisers have to just guess, right? And I don't mean guess. Advertisers are going to figure out a way to figure it out,
right?
Because advertisers are smart cookies. Marketers are smart cookies, right? No pun intended. They're going to figure it out. They're going to figure out how they're going to, get a section, a subset, a demographic.
They'll find a backdoor.
They'll find a backdoor, right?
Yeah, but it's company. It's company.
Yeah,
it's I saw that it's not a fucking law because Google Pixel doesn't do it. The only one that does it is Apple. That's the only one.
Yeah, but I think if we look this up, I think there is a law.
Maybe I'm wrong.
And it's either here or it's coming, right?
Yeah.
But and it's not like Europe. It's not as strict as Europe. Europe is super strict. Like you can literally opt out of every fucking cookie that they put in there. But this was just a couple of years ago, and now that's why and the only reason why I know about this is not because I'm some super intelligent human being. It's because I pay attention to the podcast world, and I was like, oh, what's this?
Well, that's why you're where you're at.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
Well, I mean, I know a whole bunch about a whole. I mean, I know a whole little about a whole bunch.
So let's figure out how you got to where you got.
Okay.
So now, where did you grow up at?
Chicago.
You grew up in Chicago.
Yeah.
You don't want to be there now, boy.
No, I mean not in certain parts of Chicago, certainly. But
my friends already came and take his kids to the subway.
Well, listen, there are parts of Atlanta that are the same way now, right?
Oh,
but
yeah,
Chicago's much worse. I don't want to demean Chicago's problems.
Yeah.
Chicago's got problems. They have problems, and and I don't even want to pontificate about what the problems are or what the answers are.
We'd be here all day.
This is it's sad. It's sad because I love Chicago, but Chicago has had a history from forever and forever. It's been a corrupt city. It's had a history of policing problems. It's had a history of neighborhood problems. It's had a history of gang violence. It's had a history of turf wars. It's an ever-changing city demographically. It's still one of the most beautiful cities in the country. Go visit. Don't be afraid. But there are real problems. There, 300 kids dying in a summer. It's fucking insane.
Yeah.
It's fucking insane. I can't wrap my head around it.
And that's your hometown.
It's my hometown.
So you grow up in Chicago.
Yeah.
And then when do you leave Chicago?
I think like 13 years old. My dad took a job here in Atlanta. He was working in the meatpacking district in Chicago, running a processing plant there. And he jumped to an office job doing commodities trading, buy a boatload of cows and send them to Mexico and slaughter them and then, send hot dogs to Pakistan or whatever, right? That's what he was doing and did that for most of his life after we moved to Atlanta. Moved to Atlanta when we were 13, went to Catholic school all my life. And and so I've lived in Atlanta for 30 some odd years.
Okay, so you're living there. What was your first job?
McDonald's.
Really? Was it? You want? Well, I lasted 3 days. My first job was at Hardee's.
Oh, was it? Yeah.
Yeah, my mom forced me to get a job.
Yeah,
I kept getting in trouble. And 3 days and I was done. That was it.
My dad said, you're too fucking expensive. Well, he had 4 boys, right? He had 4 boys, and we were twins. So
you got a twin?
Yeah, my brother Kevin and I are twins.
Are you Bryan or Kevin?
I'm Bryan. You would know Kevin and I could not be less physically alike.
No.
We are so different, and our personalities are so different. He had all these kids, and he says, "Listen, go get a fucking job. You want to go to the movies? You want to, we were smoking cigarettes at 14.
Yeah.
You want a pack of cigarettes? I'm not buying them for you. You got to go get a fucking job." And so he took us to go get our work permits in Georgia. I think we were working when we were just about right at 15 years old, just about to turn 15. You can work a couple hours a week when you're 14, 15 years old. So worked at McDonald's for a year and 2 years actually. Yeah.
So you get done with McDonald's.
Yeah.
And then what?
Get done with the McDonald's, and then I was a wannabe musician, So when I got done with the McDonald's when I was like 18 or 19 years old, listen, I had a bunch of menial jobs. I worked graveyard shift at a gas station one time, which I could tell you stories all day long about that. I'd work at this restaurant. I'd work at that restaurant, right? For 6 months, a year at a time, waiting tables is how I made money after I left home, which was early when I was 17 years old. But then I went and answered an ad in the newspaper, became a singer in a band,
Really?
Did that for, yeah, wow. I did. It was horrible music. It's fucking horrible. But listen, I did it for a while, right? I was a rock star for a minute in my mind. And it was fun. We played gigs and we made an album and all that other stuff, but it's nothing to talk about.
Yeah.
It's
it was fun though.
Yeah, it was fun. Yeah. It was a good time. And then I latched onto the restaurant business after I kind of settled down, 22, 23. I settled down, latched onto the restaurant business. And just this, I don't know if I made a conscious decision, but I was like, I'm going to get behind the bar and then the manager and then general manager and then, hey, why don't you come help me run this?
That's a rough business.
Fine dining business. Fucking horrible. If I have my druthers, I will not let my children, especially my daughter, ever work in the restaurant business. It's a tough business.
Yeah.
It's drugs, sex, and rock and roll. That's what it is. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Right. I was watching a documentary about Anthony Bourdain.
Oh yeah, right? He passed away, right?
He passed away. He committed suicide about 2 years ago. But I think he's like, he just reminds me of everything about the restaurant business that's good and bad. Super smart people that are super sociable and highly intelligent, usually, who are doing really tough work and love getting in trouble, right? I mean, it's just like love getting in trouble. They love having sex, they love, getting high, and they love getting boozed up. And so that was and I was a part of that crew for a long time. So I did that until I was like 28, 29. One of my friends, Google had just come online. One of my best friend had joined a company that was doing early search engine marketing. Right as Google was coming online. Like Google's 2 years old. And he was moving to Costa Rica. And he told the owner of the company, it was two brothers that owned the company, it was like 5 guys in the business. He said, I'm leaving. And he was the director of sales. But director of sales, only 5 people in the company, right?
Yeah,
sales, whatever.
Good name, though.
Yeah, good name.
Yeah, good title.
Good title.
Yeah.
It could have called him, the senior vice president of ass licking. It didn't matter. He was
5 fucking people. I mean, you got to think of 5 names for 5 people.
That's right. And they each had a director of something, senior vice president of bullshit, whatever. So he says, the guy who owned the company, you can't leave me without a sales guy, dude, right? Come on. He gives him like 2 weeks notice. I'm moving to Costa Rica. And he says, oh, no. I got the guy. So he calls me up one day, literally, and he says, I need you to find a suit and a tie, right, that looks appropriate, sober up for 15 seconds and come to this meeting because I'm going to get you a real job, right? And I'm like, I got a real job. I like that. Yeah, it's a young man's game. Fuck it. And he was right? It was getting old. And so I went and I started doing sales for that company. And we did well, and the company grew. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed search engine marketing. I enjoyed the, design and development. And we're doing it kind of at the forefront of pretty web design mixed with good, solid marketing principles, what a website could do for you, how it could change your business fundamentally. All this stuff was happening, and we were one of the firms that were kind of on the forefront of that. And so, I really enjoyed that work at that time. And that's... My friend came back from Costa Rica. We started our own business doing something very similar. And that's how it all went down. And then, 10 years ago, 11 years ago, he walks in the door, my friend Raphael, to give a shout out to Raphael. He walks in the door from some seminar in California, get rich quick bullshit in California. And he says, I got it. We're going to do real estate. And I was like, going to do fucking real estate? What are you talking about? But we're going to be the bank. And I'm like, be the bank? We don't have $6 to rub together. What are you talking about? Be the fucking bank. He's like, trust me, dude. Just watch these videos, these series of, shitty late night TV commercial videos, right?
Yeah.
And I did. And I got it. I hated the videos. And the guy was a total huckster, right, that was doing the videos. But I got it. I got what he was saying, right? I'm like, oh, yeah, you got to be the bank. You got to be the bank. Don't be the borrower, be the bank. If you can be the bank, That was good. But the problem is that,
you had $6.
Yeah, we had $6. And so then, you get a couple dollars from friends and family and you don't know the first fucking thing about real estate.
What are you going to do with it now, right?
You go give it to somebody like a bank, right? And then you end up spending 7 years trying to get out, fix the problems that you created. So it was, but then through, like anything, you just kind of evolve. But at one point, before we started the real estate business, I went and worked for Clear Channel, which was the large radio company. Yeah. And I worked for them right when they had started the app iHeart Music. It was called iHeart Radio at the time. Now it's called iHeart Media or something. But I was one of the first people in Atlanta in the company to start selling streaming radio services and online advertisements, and in charge of kind of directing this program where they were making money off this streaming stations.
Now, when you go to sell that, do you sell that physically where you're actually going to meet somebody, or is this through email or phone calls?
So I had a sales team, right? And that I directed the sales team. So very rarely did I go out. I mean, I did on occasion. And we sold, national ads and stuff like that. So usually it was done through the salespeople and or phone calls. I didn't do a whole lot of going out. But the radio people, they hit the pavement, man. Those local people, they hit the pavement. They go to mom and pop nail shops. They go to fucking Moe's. They go to Chipotle. They go everywhere.
And now when they go in there, what do they say? Because what would be the point of pushing to like a Chipotle or a nail salon?
Radio spots?
Yeah.
Because it's a local business and the radio is inherently a local media format, right?
So basically they would go in and want them to play it in their nail salon, and then with the hope that maybe somebody says, what station is that?
No. They would go sell advertising. So let's say I know not a lot of us listen to radio very often anymore, but whatever. In Atlanta, 105.5, the power or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. And so they play commercials every 15 minutes. They play 6 minutes of commercials. Those commercials are sold by these salespeople, and that's how Clear Channel makes money. They make money by selling those spots, just like I do on the podcast, right? So they go into these local shops and they say, hey, listen, did you know that 90% of all human beings in the United States of America will listen to radio for at least 30 minutes each week, right? And they'll give them the spiel, And then did you know that it takes somebody on average 3 times hearing something before it actually gets embedded in their head? And so then they go and they sell them spots and they say, okay, I'll buy 100 spots at $25 per spot or whatever.
Is that what it was back then?
Oh, it could be. I mean, depending on how popular the show was or what day part it was, right? Mm-hmm. What time it was, drive time, the beginning of the morning, the end of the afternoon. You could sell them for $150, $250, $500 a spot. That was always a big thing at Clear Channel. Always pricing spots,
Yeah, Clear Channel's huge.
They're huge.
Now, what is that same spot today?
It's got to be less, I got to imagine, because
less?
I got to imagine. I don't know because I don't keep up with the radio business anymore, right? Yeah. But it's extraordinarily similar to podcasting with one difference. Podcasting is on demand. Radio is happening live. And the other difference is that radio is very local, and while podcasting can be local, it tends to be not geographically targeted. You don't make a podcast for just the people in Atlanta. You can, and people do, but
you're narrowing your audience.
And some people might say that there's riches in the niches, so do a podcast just for Georgia because then you'll really target it. But that's a different debate. So I think that my opinion is, this is just my opinion, it's so much harder to convince someone like a nail shop, right, that people are actually listening to the fucking radio long enough to hear my spot. Because who listens to the fucking radio anymore?
Right.
Grandma,
Nobody.
Grandpa? Yeah, I mean, I know that there are people that do. I know it's a viable business. And as long as you can sell air, bro, you're always going to make money. There is 100% profit in fucking air. I mean, that's all you're selling, right? Yeah. Think about it. I'm gonna buy the license to every song in the entire world, right? Which, whatever, $1 million a year, $50 million, $100 million a year. And I'm just going to put it on repeat. I'm going to make stars out of the people whose music I play. And then I'm going to interrupt that music every 15 minutes for 6.5 fucking minutes of commercials, right? And I am going to sell that air for money. It's just like TV. But there's incredible production costs in TV, and there's almost zero production costs in radio. It's just, it's amazing to me. it's got to be a profitable business, but I can't imagine they're charging more today than they were back then. I think less people listen to radio.
But like, I mean, when you go to sell your podcast,
yeah,
like, so say you want, you know, do you have third-party sponsors, right?
We do, yeah.
Okay. Now, when somebody goes to do that, they reach out to an agent?
They reach out to the ad network. So our ad network is AdvertiseCast. Currently, as I'm sitting here today, is AdvertiseCast. And we're exclusive with them. So, and great couple of guys, and they got, you know, hundreds and hundreds of podcasts. And they will go to an agency just like a radio. So at a national level, the radio stations had national reps, and they would walk into the big agencies in New York or California or wherever, in Miami. And McDonald's would give an agency, you know, $25 million for the next 4 weeks. I want you to go spend that wherever it's effective, right? And so the agency is in charge of buying all those spots. And so my ad network walks into that agency and says, here's my roster of podcasts. I can get you so many impressions, you know, and then they say, oh, okay, you know, let me buy the commercial break. Let me buy this one. Let me buy that one. And so the ad network does that work for us. They do all the legwork. They're like the salespeople for the commercial break.
And then they take a percentage of what you get?
Yeah, they take a cut.
Because they're brokering the deal.
Well, they do the tough part, too, about radio spot or spot selling is that it can be the minutia is incredible, right? Taking care of copy. What am I going to say? Like when someone sells a spot, I always read the actual ad. It's called host read. When I do that, someone's got to get me the copy. They have to make sure that it's tailored for my show. They have to have a special website, you know, whatever, joeschmo.com/the commercial break or TCB or whatever. And then they have to follow up and get payment. They have to make sure that the spots run on time. They have to, you know, they have to do all of that stuff. That's a lot of minutia. If I had to do that myself, I would probably pay someone just as much to do it, right? So I'd rather have the power of the network because the network has many, many shows. So instead of walking in with Byan Green's, you know, however many downloads, they walk in with 100 shows that have millions and millions of downloads. And that's what's attractive to the agency because the agency says, oh, you can be a one-stop shop for, you know, $1 million of the dollars that I have to spend this week, right? And I want that. I don't want to deal with Bryan and cut him a $5,000 check. I want to cut you $1 million check, and then you go deal with all the hundreds of podcasts that you have under you. So that's the attractiveness of the podcast.
Now, when you do YouTube, right?
Yeah.
Being that you have third-party spots and everything else, do you run ads as well?
I cut them out of YouTube.
You cut all the ads out. Yeah, so you're just based on the third-party advertising.
Just audio, right? I just do advertising on audio because I feel there's value in the YouTube. And I want to sell that separately, or I would like to at some point be part of the monetization program from YouTube. And I'm not there. I don't want to talk about specific numbers, but
yeah, sure.
I could be there, right? But I haven't been invited to that program yet. I'm not involved in that program.
Yeah, your thing is the podcast, like the Apple podcast, the Spotify, the audio, the Spotify, Google, Amazon. There's a shit ton of them.
That's where our numbers are.
Yeah.
And because that was the attractive, like I've always been, I like radio. I love the audio format. I think it's incredible. You can be creative. No one has to look at my ugly mug. Like, you know, I don't have to worry about, you know, lighting and all this other stuff. Now I do it now because I realize there's power in video, right? And I have to have video. If I'm a big podcast, I have to have a video out there. People want to watch me, even regardless if I want to be up there at night. They want to throw stuff at the screen or whatever. But the audio is where we have built the real audience, like the bigger audience, and that's where I'm making the money. Right?
See, I would think that would be so. Like you have time, but I think that would be hard as hell to do right now.
It is. Here's the thing. I think the misconception about podcasts. There's a couple misconceptions about podcasting. First of all, everyone thinks everyone has a podcast. It's not true. There are 2.5 million registered podcasts on Apple. 70% of them are not active podcasts. They did 1, 2, 7, 10, 50 episodes, and they stopped. In the last 90 days, 70% of those 2.5 million podcasts have not produced or released an episode. So we're really talking about somewhere probably closer to 750,000 that have broadcast in the last 90 days. You talk about podcasts that have more than 10 episodes, now you're talking about a very small sliver. You're probably, I don't know, I think the number is like 400,000. So 400,000 podcasts out there that are actually producing and have done this
with any length of time. You cannot get heard unless you're found, as far as a podcast is concerned. Like, what are you going to fucking Google? You type in, best comedy podcast. You'll come up with a bunch of articles that have comedy podcasts like Rogan, Conan O'Brien, Bill Burr. They'll name the hits, right? But the commercial break, if I'm just starting off, never be found. If you want to have this like a business, like you do, look at you, you're all professional, right? You're buttoned up, it's clean, you got the professional stuff. You can tell that you're taking this very seriously. If you want to take things seriously, you have to treat it like a business. If you have a business, you got to invest in that business. And the thing that I did early on, even though I had no fucking clue what I was doing, the thing I did early on that I think has paid off in spades is I invested in my business. I said, no way am I going to grow an audience just putting this fucking link on my Facebook page. It's never going to happen. No one gives a shit. No one wants to listen to fucking Bryan talk. Right. They already know me, right? They can call me up and I'll talk to them for an hour about nothing. They don't want to hear me talk. No one wants to fucking hear me talk. Your friends and family don't care about your fucking podcast. That is a life lesson. Your friends and family don't care about your fucking podcast.
And even if they, if they're nice and they're like, oh yeah, that's great. They didn't listen to your shit.
Yeah, that's it. They don't listen to you. They'll tell you they listen to your shit. Right. But then what did I talk about? I don't know.
I forget. I can't remember.
It was like a while ago. It was funny. Well, yeah, what did I say? I don't know. You were talking about cars, life, breathing. I don't know.
And meanwhile, you're talking about, talking about a cheeseburger or something, right?
That's right. So, and I mean, but I understand, because people who put their podcast that I know on Facebook, I don't listen to it either. I'm like, fuck that. I already know that guy. Why am I going to listen? The reality is you have to get outside your sphere of influence if you want to grow a podcast audience, or if you want to grow a vodcast audience, right? A video podcast, which essentially is what this is. It's a show, right? That you put out on YouTube. That's your main driver is video. My main driver is audio, but we're essentially doing the same thing. You also have an audio version, and I also have a video version. I decided to invest early to try and find people outside my sphere of influence that would listen to the show, that would enjoy it, because I knew my friends and family were not my audience. And so when I did that, I did a bunch of shit. I bought billboards. Bill fucking boards. The kind of shit you see on the street where it says like Jesus saves you, right? I bought, can you imagine driving by the commercial break? Listen to that now. And people are like, what the fuck is I'm going to...
What'd that bang it for?
There's a company called Blip. I'll give them a plug because I actually think it's an interesting service. It's Blip. They buy a bunch of inventory on digital billboards, and then you can pay as little as 3 cents an impression, right? They're just guessing how many cars are going by. And you can spend as little as $100. So I did it. And the crazy thing is I actually, because I'm an analytic nut, I love watching the numbers and trying to figure out what's working and what's not working. I know that people came from that. I had people listening in 3 states when I went and bought billboards. When I bought them, and I bought them in states that I didn't have people listening. And all of a sudden people started downloading from those states. Yeah, but I mean, that was never going to be an effective way to advertise my campaign.
Yeah, I think it would. When you drive by, do you look at the billboard? No.
I do.
People do. Yeah,
I do.
I grew up in Atlantic City where there's a ton of billboards.
So it's just like noise to you. It's like white noise.
Yeah.
Yeah, to most people, I think it's white noise. So it was effective, but I early on came up with a number. If I ever want to monetize this show, how much can I spend to get one loyal listener? What is the dollar amount? So I did the math equation. I said, okay, if I can make this much, no one was buying any ads on my show. I didn't have a large enough audience, but I knew the numbers because I could see how much other people were charging for their spots. So I said, okay, if I'm like this comedy show and I can charge, $35 or $40 per spot per 1,000 people, I did the math. I came up with an ROI model, and I said, okay, I can spend up to whatever it was, $1.79 per loyal listener, that's my break even. But with billboards, I mean, it was, I was spending $10 to get one loyal listener.
Now, how does Apple Podcast and Spotify, how do their algorithms work? So how do you rank higher? So if I type in comedy, or I type in, not Byan Green, because obviously you're going to come up, right?
Yeah.
But how do the algorithms work? That's my first question. And second, because I'm new to the Apple. I just started playing with the Apple and the Spotify and the Amazon. do they pay or they don't pay? And the pay is based off of
the ads
you were talking about earlier with the ads that you get on your own.
Yeah. Typically, until a couple of years ago, the platforms were agnostic. And what I mean by that is that there was a deal made between the podcaster and the platform. And here's the deal. Apple, I will give you content to push out there in the world, but I get to keep any revenue that I make because I'm my own ecosystem. So Apple likes that because they get traffic to their platform, right? Or Spotify likes it because they get traffic to their platform. But, I can go sell ads, and that's my deal, right? Apple doesn't pay anything. They're actually one of the few left that are truly agnostic. They want you to live by a few rules, right? Don't incite violence. Don't, blah, 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 blah. Some of the Apple rules that have always been there. If you can do that, then you can be on their platform. How do they rank? If you look at Apple and you go to the comedy section and you're looking for a good new comedy thing, you can go to the Apple charts, right? But the charts are not based on how much traffic a particular podcast gets. Not solely. It's one of the factors. But there are other factors, like how long do people listen to it? How many reviews do they have? Are those reviews good or bad? So there's a number of factors, and Apple doesn't tell us what the actual mix is. So that's how people typically find new podcasts through Apple. They do find it on Google too. They go and they search for podcasts. But the number one way that people find new podcasts is by when I'm listening to a pod. Let's take an app called Castbox. Castbox gets about 3.5 million unique visitors. They're it's like a Spotify, but for podcasts only. It's an app. If I go to Castbox and I open it up, there are recommendations and there are big banner ads. Those banner ads are other podcasts they're running, right? If I'm a podcast listener and I want a new comedy podcast and I see that Castbox is recommending a new comedy podcast to me, independent comedy podcast, it's likely that I'm just going to click that comedy podcast. There are hundreds of platforms just like Castbox, smaller than Castbox. Castbox is huge, but smaller than Castbox. But they will allow you to buy space to get in front of the people who are listening. They'll allow you, maybe not the recommendations, but the banner ads, certainly. And so that is how we cracked the code. We said, if we want podcast listeners, we got to get in front of them when they're listening to podcasts, right? And that's what we did. We went to the podcast publishers and we found a way to cross-promote, to do advertising, to get in the recommendations. That's how, as a new podcaster, you get out of the sphere of influence. You find podcast listeners.
With that being said, this is 100 episodes now, right?
Yeah.
I've never even heard of that. Castbox?
Castbox.
Okay, yeah. So I would never have gone to that without you saying that. So I wouldn't even think to look there.
So if you look at Spotify does the same thing. They recommend, based on your listening preferences for podcasts and music, because they're keeping all this data that we just talked about, they'll recommend new podcasts to you.
But what I'm saying is on Spotify and Apple, how do you get to the recommendations? Because you can't buy it on a spot.
You can't buy it.
So how do you do it?
You have to have the magic winds of Apple at your sales.
So I mean, is the ranking based on like followings, downloads, streams?
All of it combined. All of it combined. Following, reviews, downloads, streams, popularity. I would imagine it has something to do with cachet also. And I don't mean, cachet like, cachet on a web page. I mean like, Conan O'Brien is going to be higher in the rankings than Byan Green because Conan O'Brien has cachet. People know who Conan O'Brien is. He's a point of interest. People are going to want to listen to what
sounds like a total bitch to get ranked and recommended on any of them podcasts.
There are no effective that I have found search engines for podcasts, right? There's just none.
Yeah.
Even Google is not a horribly effective and so that is why, but with the people who came up with podcasting in the first place, they wanted it to be that way. Podcasting was just a little thing. I'm just going to make a little audio packet. You can download it, listen to it when you want to, right? And it was just stupid, shitty little 5-minute, this is and that's that people were coming up with starting back in 2004 or 5. And it has evolved into full-blown mega productions that people are getting paid hundreds of millions of dollars to do, right? It's crazy. Podcasting is around. It will be here for a long time. It started around the same time as YouTube. It has not taken off as quickly as YouTube because I think the technology, it's easy YouTube is part of Google, and Google made it super easy to get on YouTube, and we love videos. Our eyes love to watch things, but people love to listen to things too.
So there's no real rhyme or reason or how you get, because
popular.
So with YouTube, right? It's keywords, it's tags, it's views, it's subscribers, watch time, likes, all that other bullshit, right? So YouTube, you kind of know the the strategy to eventually get ranked up, right? Where you pop up. But Apple, I have no fucking idea. Spotify, no idea. Unless you're like a Joe Rogan, O'Brien, or I think Bill O'Reilly went over there.
O'Reilly's somewhere in there, yeah.
Yeah, and he'll pop up. So to me, unless you're like a celebrity or have had a massive following, like say on YouTube, like Rogan, and then he goes over to Spotify, and he's one of 10 that they allow video with.
Yeah.
I don't know of any like algorithm or strategy to go by to get ranked.
There is, but it's not an organic. Listen, there are lots of podcasts that are extraordinarily popular that probably never spent a dime on advertising whatsoever, right? I was not that lucky. I spent some money on advertising, and once I did, people found me, they liked it, and the show started to get popular. I'm not like Conan O'Brien popular, right? But
you're just saying it took off. Yeah,
it took off, right? But there are shows, plenty of them, who just got plucked out of obscurity because it's really that good. It's that good, people like it, and all of a sudden it takes off like wildfire, right? Comedy shows, The Dollop, Basement Yard. These are, you're probably not even familiar with these, but they're in the top of the podcast charts constantly because they've been around for a long time. They have the benefit of being around for a long time.
They got age.
Number one. Number two, they're that good, and people like them. And they just started passing it around. Hey, did you hear what the Basement Yard said today, right? It's just like Stern back in the day, turn on Stern, blah, blah, blah. You ever heard of this guy Stern? It's the same thing. People do get plucked out of obscurity and become famous. What has changed in the podcast landscape, in my opinion, over the last number of years, is that people like Joe Rogan and Conan O'Brien have inserted themselves. Now every celebrity has a podcast. Every comedian has a podcast. Every entertainer, every doctor, celebrity doctor, they all have podcasts. They're all trying to... It's just yet another revenue stream, another outlet to get content out there to the world. Conan O'Brien no longer has a television show. I mean, he'll have one on HBO Max soon, but the only thing he's doing right now is that podcast. And you know what? He's the 4th most popular podcast in the entire world. Conan O'Brien is.
Really?
Yeah.
And he's making his money off of third-party advertisements, right?
Third-party ad sales, and I know the Stitcher are the people who handle his advertising, and you gotta spend a lot of coin to advertise with Conan O'Brien.
Did he get video? Did they give him video, or he's just audio?
I actually don't know that. Yeah, I'm sure that he has video somewhere, like I'm sure it's on YouTube somewhere, but
they might have given it to him on Spotify. I know that. I think there's 10. Rogan's one. The other guy he got more than Rogan. The other guy.
Who? Dax Shepard. Yeah.
What's his name?
Dax Shepard.
Yeah, I never even heard of the guy.
Rogan got $20 million a year for 5 years, right?
Is that what it was?
I think it was $120 million for 6 years, if I'm not mistaken.
I just knew that the deal was somewhere around $100 million, but I didn't know how long.
I think it's 120 for 6, and Dax got 60 for 3, so they got the same deal essentially. But Dax was also one of the most popular podcasts in the world.
Yeah.
Right. And now there's this girl.
She got paid.
Paid. She got 60 for 3 too.
Yeah, and she didn't have shit compared to those two. That was the one that I was shocked.
Call Her Daddy. That's the name of the show.
Yeah,
I can't remember the name of the girl who does it.
That was the one I was shocked that she got that much. I was kind of...
it's like it's like television. Sometimes people are like, "Oh, did you watch this show or that show?" And I'm like, "Man, I did watch this show or that show, and it's really not that good. It's not my flavor."
But right? Obviously there's somebody out there that wants
somebody out there is watching it. Yeah, and so that girl got paid. Not my flavor of podcast.
Hey, good for her.
Yeah,
right?
Good for her.
Hey,
I ain't arguing with anybody else's money, right?
She made it.
Because I don't want anybody arguing with mine.
So then you get into this TCB podcast, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of where you're at this point, early on.
Yeah. So the commercial break started in 2020, right before the pandemic.
That was first? No, that was later.
TCB and the commercial break are the same thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay. So we just call it TCB for short. So in 2020, I'd wanted to do a podcast. I tried to do one about commercial real estate, unbelievably. But I came to my senses because I figured that people in my business, they really don't want their business around the world.
Yeah.
Right? So I thought commercial real estate is a really interesting business filled with interesting characters. And I thought I would do like a little podcast about, the business and the characters in the business, not naming names, but just some of the crazy shit that happens with billions of dollars flying around, right? But I did it by myself for a couple episodes. I never actually released them, but I found it to be really boring. I didn't like it. It felt scripted. I didn't like how I sounded. And it wasn't funny. And I always felt like I wanted something to be a little bit more lighthearted. So I called my friend, who I had known for many years, Chrissy, and I said, hey, why don't you come do the show? Like just once or twice, just be my guest. Because I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I've never podcasted before, and I don't want to just talk to myself. If I'm going to be funny, it's hard to be funny by yourself, right?
Yeah.
People do it, but it's hard. I'm not Bill Burr.
Yeah.
So she said, yeah, I'll come and do an episode or two with you. And, 100 episodes later, we're still,
you guys.
Yeah, I feel like she's now like an integral part of the show.
Yeah.
I can't imagine doing it without her.
Yeah.
Now at this point.
Yeah. Can you pull up tab 2? Yeah. So this is the Coffee Break podcast, right?
The commercial break podcast.
Commercial break. I just fucked that up.
Yeah, you're fine.
Whatever. At least it's natural, right?
Yeah. Yeah, okay. So that's Chrissy and I.
That's you and Chrissy.
Yeah,
scroll down. No. Stay right there. Just scroll down. Scroll down on that page.
Yeah.
There you go. Yeah, so.
Stop right there.
So there's our latest episodes.
Okay. Would you rather? I Love Lamp.
Attack of the Tinas. I mean, listen, this is why this is all ridiculous stuff.
Yeah.
So like, I'll take it, Attack of the Tinas as an example. I make up these funny names for every episode, by the way. I like alliteration. I like playing with the titles. In 1940s, they used to put out these PSAs, these crazy long, hour-long PSAs, how to date, be careful you don't become gay, right? Look out for the homosexual. Like the government was paying, or like General Electric did a bunch of PSAs about dishwashers, right? Literally. They were like, they'd put out these PSAs. Life is easier for women with dishwashers.
Yeah, so you're just making fun of stupid shit.
So we would play. So we played a number of these PSAs, and then we talk through. We stop them and talk and joke about it and take it in ridiculous places. And then I Love Lamp. I found a video, a famous documentary called "I Married the Eiffel Tower." And so we went through that video, kind of point by point, and just were making fun of this. There's like 70 people on Earth are called objectophiles, and they fall in love with objects like the Eiffel Tower. And somebody actually married the Eiffel Tower. Married it, but not as a joke, because she loves it. Because she's in love with the fucking Eiffel Tower.
Like actually
in love. Like having sex with the Eiffel Tower.
Wow. That's kind of weird.
And there's another lady. I mean, listen, to each their own, right? If you love,
listen, you want to fuck the Eiffel Tower? I mean, good for you.
You want to stick your dick in the Eiffel Tower? God bless you.
Yeah.
So
I hope it still works after that.
There's another lady in this particular documentary, and she fell in love with a German like a carnival ride that just spins around, right? It spins around, and it's called 1001 Nacht is the name of it. It's German.
Yeah.
Right? And so during the video, she's like, oh, 1000 Nacht. I love your fluids. Pour them all over me. She literally gets up into the guts of this particular, it's closed for the winter. They let her in. She gets into the guts of this ride, and she's pouring this roller coaster grease all over her. And she's like talking to it. She's like, how many times when I've been at home making love to a picture of you have I asked you for this? I just wanted your grease all over me.
I would highly recommend an extremely large amount of therapy.
Listen,
I mean, you're pouring fucking roller coaster grease on you, and the other one's banging the tower.
Yeah, well, listen. So the other one is banging the tower. She falls in love with a During the documentary, she falls in love with a fence, and she's making love to the fence during the...
Fuck.
It's fucked up, man. Listen, again, to each their own. If that's what you like.
Shit, it makes me feel better about myself.
Sure does. At least you married a real human being.
Yeah. I didn't marry fucking grease from a roller coaster.
That's right. It's so weird. So that's the kind of the flavor of the show. We look at life and
just make fun of it. Yeah.
Make fun. Have fun with it.
And tell the story that you were telling me before we came on about the guy on the bridge, and he was having a tough time.
Yeah, we had early on, I had a email from a guy. This is like episode number 21. I don't know him. I have no idea who he is. But he emailed and he explained that particular day, he came home to a Dear John letter, and his wife had taken the children. And he got in the car with the purpose of figuring out how he took that car and put it over a bridge without hurting other people. Now, it's a short email. It's 2 paragraphs long, right? But what he explained was that he listened to the podcast, or number of the episodes of the podcast, and he felt like he was going to make it to tomorrow, right? That he laughed enough and, he got it out and he felt like he was going to make it to tomorrow. As many listeners as you have, as many downloads as you get, as many people buy the podcast show, tell you how wonderful you are, all that other stuff. When people say that it affects your life, you're like, it's just a stupid comedy show. Like, honestly, we're not trying to change anybody's life. This is not world-changing stuff we're doing on the commercial break. It's literally goofing off for an hour.
But in a sense, it is, because laughter is medicine. To life. Yeah, it's the best medicine in the world.
I agree with you. And when I go in for a number of hours a week and I record with Chrissy, I know I always feel a little bit lighter, right? It's
like therapy of your own.
Sure is.
How long are your podcasts usually?
We don't go much over an hour. We've had a couple that are an hour and a half, but that's only if the material's there. I find that people tune out after about an hour. Really, what I find the exact minute is 48 minutes.
Is that what it is?
Tends to be the number when people tune out. And I don't know why that is, but early on I fooled with the idea of having 2 hours. I fooled with the idea of, different lengths, half an hour. But 48 seems to be that magic number, so I keep it as close to that as possible.
Yeah.
It's digestible, I think.
And they probably come back and finish it off another time, right?
Yeah.
Because then you get the 48 number, but then you get the 15 number.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To finish off the podcast.
Yep.
Because a lot of times, like, I'll watch Rogan, but I'm not on the treadmill for 3 hours.
Yeah, you can't listen to 4 hours every day.
Yeah, I'm on there for 30 minutes. You know what I mean? So, like, I'll do 30 minutes today, 30 minutes tomorrow if I like it. And after an hour, if I still like it, I'll watch the whole 3.5. If I don't, then I move on to the next one or something else.
Yep.
So for the podcast, 48 is kind of the number.
Yeah,
roughly.
I think most podcasters would agree that 30 minutes to an hour is the magic number. Unless you have a Rogan type podcast where you just have rabid fans who may not listen in one sitting, but they'll come back and listen later. And quite frankly, I think one of the things about Rogan, if we talk about him for a second, is that Rogan likes to do 4 hours. He likes to sit and talk to people for long periods of time because that's where he gets them, right? He gets them into this comfort zone. It's kind of like Stern. Stern, I think most people are used to going in. They're doing like a press junket for 5, 10, 15 minutes tops. But you go into Stern and you sit for an hour, hour and a half. That's where they get you comfortable, right? So when Rogan's talking to someone for 2, 3, 4 hours, it's never meandering, but he's getting them comfortable. It takes a while to get warmed up, right? And I think that's part of Rogan's strategy, actually.
That's what appealed to me, because you give a person a chance to talk, right? Not like, okay, here's the questions we're going to ask. Here, look, but don't tell anybody that you already know the questions, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You got 10 minutes to answer an extremely complicated question, possibly, that nobody on the planet can answer the way they want to in 10 minutes.
Right.
And a lot of times what I've seen is people know that they're under a time restriction, right?
Yeah.
And then they answer things as quickly as possible, not really thinking about what they're saying,
Exactly.
because they know they're under time, and then it gets taken out of context. And I think when he came in, he had the backing of Fear Factor and, his comedy, MMA and all that. So he had a lot of traction from the gate. And then when he came in, I think he was probably the first one that had long, YouTubes. I mean, there was a couple other guys, but I don't think they were 3-4 hours. But he would get a guy in, like he had gotten in Bernie Sanders.
Yeah.
And that was 3.5 hours.
I remember watching.
Bernie Sanders hasn't had 3.5 hours to speak his mind in his entire life.
No.
You know, it's always been that 10 minutes. I wish, and I'm not being political either, I wish that Biden and Trump would have went in there. Remember they were talking about that?
Yeah.
And let them go for 3 hours.
Sure.
I mean, I think one guy might have a fucking heart attack by the end, but I mean, you shoot him with enough shit, maybe he lasts an hour. But that would have been cool because then you could let them both. And Rogan's a pretty good. He's been doing it long enough where he can keep them in line.
He's comfortable in his studio, and so I think when you're the king of your domain, right? Then no matter who comes in the door, you're going to be okay. You're going to figure it out, and so that's his home turf. That's where he knows how to do it. I think the thing about Rogan that why he's so popular. Like I've had this question a couple of times. Why Rogan? Why is he so popular? He has done a good job at crafting a persona of pragmatic, truth-seeking, open-mindedness, right, in his style. So he does let people talk, and he does ask the tough questions. He looks for the answers. He's trying to get to the bottom of things, but he's always open-minded about it, right? And so I think most men mainly, right, and probably some women, a lot of women too, but men find it attractive, find that personality type attractive because we all want to think that we're similar. We're open-minded, truth-seeking, pragmatic people who just want to get to the bottom of what the fuck is going on, right? Without bias and bullshit and all this other stuff. So Joe, I think, has become kind of an everyman. And that's why I think he's so attractive to so many people. Is because we like to think, we also think exactly like Joe. Yeah, I could go do ayahuasca in the woods and then come back and sit down and hold my own with Bernie for 3.5 hours, asking him the tough questions, getting to the bottom of it, right? I can, say I'll vote for Trump 1 minute and have Bernie in the next minute, right? He's just kind of extraordinarily open-minded, or at least that's the impression that he gives is why he's so popular. When he's in that studio, there's nothing I think he can't do. Right. Yeah. And I think if Trump and Biden would have come in there, he would have given he would have come in with that same character that he's always had. I'm not saying he's playing a character, but that same persona that he's built up would have been sitting there between the two of them.
I think he would have treated it the same as he does, like when he has, excuse me, when he has like Alex Jones on and another guy, Alex is going off and he settles Alex Jones down so that the other guy could talk. You know what I mean? But,
was that Tim Dillon or whoever?
Yeah, it was Tim Dillon and it was right around Christmas or something.
Yeah.
And, Jones was going off drinking and everything. And, he didn't put him in his place disrespectful.
Calmed him down.
So that the other, what's his name, could just say a word.
Could say a word.
So I think it would have been a great thing. And I agree with you. And the diversity, you know what I mean? And that's what appealed to me, which is why I did copy his ass. It's because, I'll have, a fraudster in here 1 minute, a guy, dealing with Elon Musk another minute, you in here now, and a hitman in a week later, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then a CIA agent after the hitman, you know what I mean?
You're curious, right? And that's, I think, the other thing, truth-seeking and curious. I want to get to the bottom of what the fuck is going on, and I want to learn new stuff. I'm still interested in learning, and I think that's where Joe has walked this line between being funny, being interesting, right, being informative, and being controversial, right? Which everybody needs a little spice of controversy, I think, in order to really kind of add fuel to the fire. And Joe's done that. I think he's really smart about that. Bringing Alex Jones in his second month at Spotify, when Spotify had just taken Alex Jones, all of the Alex Jones episodes off of the platform, was a big fuck you, I think, to Spotify, letting them know, hey, you told me editorial control, let's put it to the test, right? Are you going to run this or you're not going to run this?
Remember all those articles that they were saying that, employees were threatening to quit? Do you think that was true, or do you think that was
I do. I think that probably Spotify, like a lot of technology companies, tends to lean liberal, right? You got young kids that are working in there and younger kids. I think musicians in general and people who love music in general tend to think liberally. They're empathetic people who, I'm not knocking it because you and I already talked about this. We don't want to go into politics. It's not important. It's boring, quite frankly. But I do think I can see how people at Spotify would be upset by Rogan. Rogan also, he has in his truth seeking, I think, and he may even admit this if he was sitting right across the table, is that he has given a voice sometimes, maybe not even purposefully, to outsider opinions that really may be on the kind of on the fringe, right? And I think that people at Spotify, I could see how they could get upset by that. Alex Jones, like him or hate him, he is a shitstorm. That guy is a fucking dumpster fire, right? And he just throws anything at the wall and sees what sticks. That's a persona. It's a character. It's like professional wrestling. If you believe that Alex Jones believes half of the stuff he's saying, you should get your head checked. Right? And so he's just a professional wrestler, and he's going in there and doing the professional wrestling thing. He's trying to stir you up, right? If you think that Alex Jones thinks that there's lizard people walking on Earth, but people do think that Alex Jones believes that lizard people are walking on Earth, and then they believe it. The problem is that Alex has opened himself up by playing that character, that heel. He has totally demonetized himself. He is completely uncredible, and no one wants to have him around, right?
Well, I think they're scared of him. I don't know. If
I would be too. I wouldn't have him on my show. Would you?
Well, nah. Maybe because only due to the risk of being
things. Yeah.
Only to the risk of it fucking up the 100 episodes that I put all this time into. You know what I mean? Because YouTube hates him, which I think they should just. Who cares? As long as he's not like, threatening kids or something. I mean,
well,
you don't like it, turn a channel.
I think when you start getting into, like, I think about this all the time with my own content, right?
Yeah.
Because we do content that's racy, and maybe that's one of the reasons why YouTube has yet to send me an invite right to their dinner table.
Yeah,
because we do stuff that's really racy. We talk about sex a lot. We talk about stuff that's on the edge, right? But where I draw the line is I am never going to tell anybody anything that I think could put them or other people in danger. I'm never going to tell you not to wear a mask. I'm never going to tell you not to get unvaccinated, right? Regardless of how I fucking feel, right? I'm just going to stay away from the subject altogether, right? I'm not going to tell you that, mass shootings were just, whatever, Black Swan events and all this other stuff, regardless of how I feel about it. Because you could rile people up. And those some people, they don't think for themselves. They just don't. You know this, right?
Yeah.
You know this. You're an entrepreneur. You're a smart guy, right?
Thank you.
You're a smart guy. You got a smart lady, which means that you're a smart guy, because only smart guys have smart ladies. I think that's the truth. People are not smart. A lot of people are not smart. They just don't think for themselves. And so if they hear something, they hear some content that riles them up, and they see someone that's so fucking passionate about it, right? In their little pea brains, right? They're like, I can fix this. I can solve this. I can shoot that person. I can throw a bomb here. I can do whatever, right? I can hurt people. I can protect people, whatever they're thinking. When the truth is that Alex Jones was just a professional wrestler all along. He never believed any of the shit he was saying, but he's getting people so riled up that they may go out and hurt themselves. And that's where I understand that it gets really tricky for a company like YouTube or Spotify, Joe Rogan or you or me or whoever. It gets really fucking tricky, because then are you liable? Maybe not even from a legal sense, but ethically, are you liable if you give if you give a voice to that? But there's also this part of me, this big part of me, like this Buddhist part of me, that is like, listen, talk's not hurting anybody, right? I mean, this is what this country was built on. You got to let people speak. It's a really dangerous gray area to start blacklisting people because you don't agree with their particular beliefs.
See, I think it's a free country, free speech. Yeah. So the kid thinks that that's what he should do. Well, then I'm just playing devil's advocate.
No, I hear you.
Right?
I see how we can. I totally agree with you.
Yeah, and I'm just playing devil's advocate.
Sure.
So if that's like your opinion, somebody might go throw a bomb at something that Jones says, right?
Yeah.
Well, then you could say, who's liable? Is it Spotify, Apple, YouTube? Okay,
yeah.
All right. But then you could also say, well, that kid who's 10, 12 playing Grand Theft Auto, playing Halo, shooting everybody.
Yep.
Okay, he goes into school and he shoots up a place because he's playing these games all the time. Now, who's liable? But nobody says anything about that.
I could not agree with you more, which makes this a really ultra complicated argument.
Therefore, for me, I say fuck it. Free speech.
Yeah.
Because they're going to do it. Because look, this is just my opinion. And again, I always respect anybody's opinion, and I'm, and who knows? It's just, everybody's got a fucking opinion. So
they're all like assholes. They all stink.
Right, but so if you like Alex Jones and you like what he says, right, you're gonna find Alex Jones. Like, he's got his trans,
absolutely,
whatever,
America Radio. Or
radio. So you're gonna go find him either way. So whether you take him off YouTube or Spotify, if you like him or your friend likes him and says, "Hey, did you hear this?" You're going to find him. So why take him off? Just let him fucking say what he wants to say, because you're going to find, if you want to find him, you're going to find him. If you're either with a guy like, and we keep talking about Jones, but with a guy like him, and there's many others like him,
agreed.
Right?
Yeah. On both sides of the aisle.
On both sides of the aisle.
Both sides of the aisle.
Like a pure left is not going to listen to a right show, right? A pure right won't listen to a left show.
No.
If you're into Alex Jones, you're into Alex Jones. If you don't like him, you're not going to listen to him either way.
Yeah.
If you do like him and you kick him off these platforms, the company's just stupid, because they're losing money. Because whether you like him, agree with him, don't agree with him, he's bringing in the viewers. I mean, he's getting millions and millions every episode when he was on YouTube. Whether I like him or not, that doesn't matter. They were making money. Now you kick him off, again, the people that are going to listen to him are going to listen to him.
Yep.
And, I've said this many times, like the war on drugs. If they make every drug legal, and you can go to CVS today and get heroin, are you going to go do heroin?
It's not going to be as attractive.
I'm saying, in my opinion, you want to fight all of this war on drugs. The government wants the money. It's stupid.
Yeah.
You just make the fucking shit legal. If they're going to do it, they're going to do it.
Package it, make it the same, make it safe.
Right.
Safe as it can be, right?
Safe as it can be. And at least when you walk into that CVS or Walgreens,
you know what you're getting.
You know it's not fentanyl and just whacking people out because it's cut, because you're stepping on it, and then by the time it gets to whoever, they're dead, right? Yep. So quit spending all this fucking money on the war on drugs, because you're never going to beat it. Legalize it all. Take the tax dollars, do real rehab, not the rehab that's here. Look at Portugal; they went down 70% in crime.
It's crazy, and it's crazy, and it worked.
It worked,
right? Because it makes all the sense in the world. But
it will never happen.
Trillions of dollars at stake and millions of jobs.
That's right.
Okay, but let me ask you a question about this. I'm just curious about your opinion about this. CNN is never going to invite Sean Hannity to come over and do a program over at their place, right? Because they find him repulsive, right? Or whoever.
Yeah, because he's really out there to the right. I mean, he's really to the right.
Who? Hannity? Hannity, yeah. And who's the other guy that they have on there? Chris. What's his name?
Tucker got good. He got. Yeah. I liked him. He kind of evolved.
Okay, so let's say Tucker or Hannity, right? CNN's not going to give them a platform. Why? Because the company is run. The CNN is owned by whoever they're owned by now, Warner, Time Warner, Liberty Media, whatever it is, HBO Max, who knows, who can tell these days. And they have a distinct point of view, right? And it doesn't fit their narrative. Just like Fox is not going to invite Rachel Maddow over to start doing an hour-long program on their show either, right? So if YouTube is a company that is beholden to the shareholders and has a CEO and a director of content like everybody else, and they say, we think it's dangerous to have Alex Jones on our platform, regardless of whether, and I agree with you, by the way, I think if you start censoring what people say and you start pretending you know what people think, then you're in a whole fucking different ball game, and you're probably quickly going to be in a country no one wants to live in, right? So I agree with you on that point. But do you think that YouTube has the right to deplatform him?
That's a tough question.
Yeah.
I think they have.
Does Twitter have the right to deplatform Trump? Does YouTube have the right to deplatform Jones?
Well, what Twitter did to Trump, I think, is fucked up. I don't care if you like him or not. You use him for 4 years, make all that money off the ads. The second he's out, you cut him.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fucked up. That Dempsey needs his head checked. That was fucked up what he did. I don't care.
Oh, well,
if you wanted to ban him, you should have banned him 3 years ago.
Didn't he even say that was fucked up? Didn't Dempsey even say we made the wrong
He
move?
said it in so many words. He was like, well, it's like he kind of tried to like dump it off on like the computers, decided this, and well, if that's the case, then just unclick the button.
Well, I think they made the decision in the heat of the moment on January 6th when no one knew what was going on, and they made a rash decision without a lot of thought. But if YouTube is a company and they say like, I don't have a right to be on Apple's platform as a podcaster, right? And there are podcasters who don't get on Apple because Apple doesn't agree with their particular brand of content. So Apple says you can't be in our directory, which would be a big kick in the nuts to any podcaster, right? But you'd have to be super extreme for that to happen. But there are people who I've heard about who have been there. But I have to say, okay, if I want to be on Apple, the largest podcasting platform out there, I guess I have to play by Apple's rules.
See, I think they should go. I think Apple has it down. Where like they're not going to ban you for conspiracy or whatever, but if you're talking about stuff like really horrible shit, then they're not going to allow it. Yeah. That's reasonable, right? Yeah. Whereas YouTube, they kind of just seem to pick and choose at times what they.
I do agree they have an incredibly funky monetization policy.
It's really odd.
Yeah, we may not even want to talk about it because you may not even
fucked. You know what I mean? But to get back to you and what's going on with you, but with that. That's a tough question. I mean, no, I don't think they should. No, because I think, there's the vets and everybody else have fought for the country to have free speech. With that, and I'm not talking about like somebody coming on and talking about anything about kids or anything violent like that or promoting violence, but. Banning a guy like Jones or the other ones similar to him, no, I don't think they should do that. Yeah. No, I completely disagree with it because for many reasons. One, I don't think that they should, and I don't agree with it, right? I think they should have free speech. And two, the fear with that is, okay, that's where it starts, right? So now you knock off Jones. What's next? Now you can't say this. Now you can't say that. Just like with the, we could go down a rabbit hole with this shit.
I totally agree with you.
But, so now you kick off Jones. Now where does that lead to? Who's your next fucking, where's the bullseye on the next one? And then before you know it, the board changes, blah, blah, blah. And now you have it structured to where YouTube or whatever platform becomes like a Fox, who was actually bought by Disney and has changed since they've been bought by Disney. But prior to that, you have a Fox and a CNN. And then before you know it, you have like a YouTube and a whatever
or whatever
that lets you.
What is it? The pillow guy now?
Yeah, and it would just be another shit show.
Or
and it would just be another shit show.
Well, that's what it's turning into. Is just a shit show. It's just all a bunch of siloed bullshit. But anyway, listen,
Yeah. So back to you. So now you get into the podcasting. You figured out the niche, right? And what made you, really push for this? Because, you have your real estate, you're doing heavy hitter shit.
Yeah.
I understand the therapy part, but, you're doing the research of what you're going to, your topics. Yeah. You're doing an hour a clip with one person. That's still an hour that you got to research, and you're trying to be funny.
Because I love it.
Because you love it.
Because I love it. I absolutely love it.
Couldn't have a better answer.
I can't think of anything. Since I'm a kid, I got my my boombox, my first boombox that had the little red button where you could record, and I used to break the little tabs off the cassette players, and I used to push it in there, and I would pretend that I was on the radio. A friend of mine across the street would come over, and we'd make little voices, and we'd do little funny shows and skits because we liked the guys in Chicago that were doing that funny kind of morning, whatever clown show,
I remember because they became everywhere.
Yeah, like whatever, the Morning Zoo or whatever.
The Morning Zoo or something.
Yeah, the Morning Zoo.
So was that your influence?
Maybe. I don't remember what the name was. It probably was a Morning Zoo, right? I don't remember what the name was. But, late at night, the disc jockeys would be doing prank calls and all this other stuff, right? And we always just thought that was so funny. We would mimic this. We're talking I'm 8, 9, 10 years old when I'm doing this. The reality is I never lost that passion for that particular vehicle of media.
Gotcha.
And so now that I'm doing it and someone's actually fucking listening, it's exciting, right? I do it for the love of it. I know a lot of people say just do it for the love of it, and that should be enough. But I also like the fact that people are listening.
Yeah, I mean, keep the screen up. So if we look at this, so you're the senior strategist, Nebo Interactive Marketing Agency.
That was the internet marketing agency I did.
Okay, and then senior executive Clear. Wow, you're a senior executive at Clear Channel.
I was.
Wow, that's a big job. Brian discussed iHeart.
iHeart Media.
I want to say radio.
That's what it used to be called, actually.
Yeah. And then founder of Simcoe FM streaming radio. You were the founder of that?
I was a founder. I was a co-founder with another guy. It was a streaming radio station. It failed miserably. We actually make a lot of fun of it. But
you probably learned from it, though,
I learned a ton.
And then creator and host of the Commercial Break podcast, top 10 comedy podcast, and 1% most trafficked podcast worldwide.
Yep.
Google Analytics certified. Co-founder of Weekend Podcast.
Weekend Podcaster is an agency where we help people build their audiences.
Okay, so now when I look at this, when you say top 10 comedy podcast and 1% most trafficked podcast worldwide, what does that actually mean to like a retard?
So what the more important thing is in my opinion, is the top 1% most trafficked podcast in the world. The top 10 comedy podcast rankings change all the time. There's a lot of different kind of rankings. They have improv, they have comedy, they have trending, right? There's a lot of different charts and they're not stationary. So like right now, we're top 10 in a couple of countries, but not in the United States. It moves up and down, right? As people move, it's like radio, like Nielsen ratings or anything else. But the top 1% most trafficked podcast in the world means simply what it says. Of all of the podcasts that are broadcasting or publishing currently, we are in the top 1% of those podcasts.
That's huge.
Yeah,
That's huge.
We're in the top 1,000 podcasts. Traffic-wise, we have a fair amount of traffic. For podcasting, we have a fair amount of traffic coming to our podcast.
Right. And then Google Analytics certified. What does that mean?
That just means that Google Analytics is a program where you can decipher a shitload of information about people that are coming to your website, what they're doing, when they're doing it, why they came there, who they are. It's all that stuff we were talking about, right? All that information, that data. I have learned from Google themselves how to read that information and parse it in different ways so I can be effective as a marketer. I can tell, do people like to click this button on my website or that button on my website? Do they stay around when they go to this page first or that page first? So it allows me to just kind of decipher that information.
And now, do you have like a website for that, or do you sell that, or you got Google Analytics?
I got Google
certified
Analytics certified for my company a number of years ago, and then I did the test again, and I did it again. I just like the analytics part of it, so I like to pay attention to the numbers, quite frankly.
So you got Google Analytics certified for your company, not necessarily to go and say, hey, look, do this, do that, do that.
Yeah. I did it for the company so that I could help my clients, our clients. But now I do it for myself. Right now, I like looking at the analytics on the back of my podcast, on the back of the website. It's a ton of fun, man.
If you had time, you should offer that, because a lot of people don't understand that. You need to look at that to adjust.
With Weekend Podcaster, we do sell those services. We do sell consulting services, and clients, larger podcasters who are serious about making money with their podcast or growing their podcast, pay us to consult with them. And one of the services that we do with that consulting is teaching them how to read their analytics so they know what makes good content and how to make better content.
Okay. So if I'm a podcaster and I want to get a hold of you to do that, how would I hire you to do that, or hire your company to explain to me or whoever is starting out, trying to expand, how to read the analytics, how to adjust, and then do you give like a kind of like a strategy of what to do from here on out?
That's exactly what we do. Yep. So we put together strategic documents. So typically it's a 3 to 6 month engagement. We actually go and we identify who your listeners are, how you get in front of them. We help you grow that audience. We'll do media buys for you if you want to do what I did and buy advertising to get out in front of new people. I'll do that on your behalf, right? We'll help you organize a strategy to grow your audience and to understand how to make better content and how to grow those numbers. And when those numbers are growing, how to actually look at the data and understand it. Because a lot of people get intimidated by that shit. They're like, holy shit, what am I looking at, right?
Right.
And so they can just contact me, weekendpodcaster.com. They can contact us and we'll be happy to talk them through that.
So now, is that just for audio podcast, or do you do that with YouTube?
We are starting to do that with video also.
You are. So you're merging. You're doing it, or you're merging into that.
We have 2 clients currently that we're doing that with as a part of a larger engagement for their podcast, because most podcasters now have video also. So I would say that it's becoming an important part of our business. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So you do it all.
We'll do it all.
Right.
We'll do editing, production, consultation, content creation. We'll do it all. If you have a podcast and you're serious about it, I'm not talking about, if you want to spend $50, there are services you can use. That's not us, right?
Right.
And that's not to knock the $50 services. It's just not us. If you're serious
I'll
about
do it. If you're spending $50, you're going to go nowhere.
Yeah, you're going to go nowhere.
Because it costs more than $50
That's right.
of time and just effort.
That's right.
To do anything.
You have to be serious about it. So give us a call, and we will be happy to help you.
And do you help, I know a lot of YouTube people looking for third-party sponsors. So I found... I haven't got, going into that yet. I'm waiting a little bit before I start pushing, all this third-party shit. But my question is, so when a person, the YouTube people, not necessarily like the Apple and the Spotify, which is kind of your niche, right?
Yeah.
But you see the YouTube's, probably something you want to get into too. Do you help guys get third-party sponsors?
We help
YouTube?
them get into ad networks so that they can. We have relationships with ad networks so that they can get third-party sponsors. We don't actually have that sales force on staff, but we will help them do that for sure. I'd love to add that we are helping podcasters right now get into ad networks so they can make money off their.
Okay, so like a guy with a YouTube channel could come to you, email you, contact you, and say, "Look, I want third-party ads. I want a billboard. I want that." You'll take a look at the channel. Okay, you give a price. If they're okay with the price, then although you sub it out or you broker the deal with whoever, the person who hires you doesn't have to do shit. You just come back and you say, "Look, this is what I got for you. Which ones?"
The ad network takes care of all of it.
Okay,
everything. Yeah, and you just run the ad. That's all you do.
Okay, and one more time, if I want you to say it. So one more time, if you are interested in that, we know a lot of you watching this out there are, because it's a bitch.
It is. Weekendpodcaster.com. Or you can email me, Bryan, BRYAN, at weekendpodcaster.com. And for the actual podcast that we have, it's called The Commercial Break at tcbpodcast.com.
Okay. And if you want to pull up his Instagram, we'll do that one. Tab 3.
Can I? My wife, I hate to interrupt our flow, but my wife has been texting me. She's on the road, and she's asking me to call her.
Sure.
Can we take like a 2-second
Take your time.
break?
Yeah, I'll just mark it and I'll.
Please.
I'll blade
sorry.
it. No, Brian, don't worry about it, man.
Can I have your card? There's one other show that had it. They didn't have The Commercial Break. They had Commercial Break, right, with no the, but they have long since stopped publishing, so they weren't even publishing one.
So Brian had it first. So fuck off.
Brian had it. Yeah, fuck off.
All right, so let's scroll down here. Scroll down on his Instagram. Okay, there's episode 88, Attack of Tennis.
Tennis.
Attack
of the Tennis.
I see how the comedy. Hey, John, you're out of control. Who's that about?
So we were talking about who's the guy, the Virgin Atlantic guy, Richard Branson?
Yeah.
That show where he, or not the show, but that when he took the rocket up to space.
Yeah.
And how incredibly boring they made that entire broadcast. But if you remember that Red Bull put together a big show when they had the guy jump out of the balloon from space. Do you remember that? He was right at the sphere of space. He went up for 7.5 fucking hours and he dropped for 8.5 minutes. And while he was doing that, the guy was spinning out of control. He lost consciousness. And there was a guy on the ground, the broadcaster on the ground, who was communicating with him the entire time, right? And he's like, John, you're out of control, John. Get yourself together. Oh my God, John's gonna die, right? I mean, it was just the most interesting play-by-play of a guy falling out of the sky that I've ever heard in my entire life. Meanwhile, first commercial flight to space with actual, human beings that we care about in the actual thing. And some girls on there there's the rocket burst, 30 seconds. T-minus 10 seconds till space. They're in 0G now. And meanwhile, none of the fucking cameras worked. So there's no camera angle. You can't see shit. There's some girl falling asleep on the microphone. I'm like, if you can fucking put a rocket in space, you better hire John. Whoever was talking to John throughout the broadcast, whoever was play-by-playing John falling out of the sky made it seem like John was imminently dead, like he was going to die at any moment. You wanted to tune in for all 7 hours and 12 minutes. Richard Branson goes into space. It takes 13 and a half seconds, and it's fucking boring. It's like, come on, Richard. I hope Elon does it better. That's all I got to say.
Oh, I'm sure he is.
Yeah, even
sure
Bezos did it better. At least his cameras are working.
Elon's going to go big time.
Big time.
Yeah.
Shoot himself into space.
With a rocket launcher, probably, right? You know what I mean?
I mean, listen, that's incredible shit. I have no desire to go to space, by the way. Zero desire to go to space.
I do.
You do?
Yeah.
If you could get on one of those planes, you would?
Right now?
Yeah.
No, not yet.
No.
I'd want more. I don't want to be beta 1 or beta 2. You know what I mean?
You don't want to be the first you don't want to be the first civilian who dies.
Because you got to understand, the guy that you're sitting across from, if I didn't have bad luck, I'd have no luck. And I'd be that one motherfucker that the thing blows the fuck up. And if I'm going to blow up, I don't know if going to space is worth blowing up.
You got kids.
Right.
Yeah,
I like at 60, maybe I'll take the shot.
Yeah.
Fuck it. If I blow up, whatever.
You blow up. Yeah.
Right?
I just don't ever really. First of all, I'm scared of heights. I hate.
Oh, you're
fucking
fucked then.
heights.
You got no shot. You ain't going to space.
But here's the crazy thing. About 2 years ago, I picked up flying. I actually started 3 years. Well, my son's 3.
So
so
flying?
Flying. 3.5 years ago.
Scared of flight?
Totally scared of heights.
30,000 feet.
You couldn't get me to stand on the top of this building and get me anywhere near the edge of it, and it's just 3 stories tall. Right?
You hear this guy?
I learned
he's
how to
scared of heights,
fly.
but he'll go 30,000 feet in the fucking air.
Fly. It was the craziest thing. I fell in love with it. I was like, oh, this is fascinating. I think because I was in control, it felt a little better. I was still scared of heights, but I think because I was in control, I felt a little bit better. But I don't want to go to space. Like, I don't have any.
Hey, you know what? You can come to therapy with me. Because you got some wires crossed up there like myself.
Yeah, I know. I got a therapist. She gets paid well.
Yeah, like I'm not scared of anything. I get a sore throat. I'm like,
I'm dying.
I'm dying.
Everything's going
like
on.
I do everything to make sure I don't get it. I sit in fucking sauna and everything. You know what I mean? And when I'm sick, I'm a bitch. You know what I mean?
Too.
Like I hide it, but I'm a bitch if I'm real sick.
Men are bitches when we're sick.
Yeah, but then,
we
I'll
get
fuck
mommy
somebody
syndrome.
up in 2 seconds if I have to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, you're a tough guy, right?
Yeah.
You're a masculine guy. I can tell by just sitting there with you. You're a masculine guy. You're a tough guy, but you're empathetic. You're not a jack off, right? But when we get sick, no matter how masculine we are, we get mommy syndrome instantaneously. It's like we want our mommies, and no one else is going to do. So whoever's around us is going to suffer the.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Get me this. Get me that.
I think we like the attention a little bit, and when I don't feel good, I don't know.
You get needy.
Very.
You get needy. You can be the toughest guy in the world, a killer. It don't matter. You get needy.
Have you been when your child was born? Did you go through the experience of birth?
Yeah, through a window. It was during COVID.
Oh yeah, I had one during COVID too.
Yeah, so I was outside through the window. So I had it on my phone when it popped, but it was through a fucking.
I had one during COVID. I was allowed in, but I was the only one allowed in, and it was a C-section, only one that was allowed there the entire stay. But the first one was a natural birth. And so I get a little bit of a sore throat. And for 5 days, I want the world to stop and pay attention to me. And I want to lay in bed. I want everything done for me. And I'm a fucking pain in the ass. But I watched my wife literally almost die on that table and never complained once. Never fucking complained once. And so after that, I chill out a little bit when I'm sick. Like, I always remember.
Even though you want it, but you're like, wait a minute.
minute.
I am kind of the alpha of the family.
I kind of should take care. Yeah, my wife was a fucking trooper. Birth's no joke. Yeah.
Hey, I'm glad I don't have to have it.
Hey, listen, me too.
Fuck that. I don't want nothing to do with that.
No. I guess that's why we're men.
Pull up his personal Instagram, please. And I don't mean to call his. Brian.
No.
I apologize.
You're fine. Here's a funny thing I think about Instagram. You can follow us at The Commercial Break, at Bryan W. Green.
And we'll have all this in the description.
Yeah.
And before it goes up, send me every link that you want. I'll make sure it's all in there.
I'll send it to you. One of the funny things I found about, so I'm working with this guy, one of our clients, and I won't give his name because I don't know if he wants to be mentioned, but he has 6.5 million social media followers, 3.5 million on Facebook, another 3-some million, I think, on Instagram, and then his Twitter is like 9 million. So his reach is huge, right? He started a podcast, and he is having trouble getting an audience to that podcast. It's nowhere close to the kind of audience he has. I mean, we're talking like thousands of listeners compared to millions of people on social media that follow him. And he's had this podcast for a year, and he can't get it to translate. So what the interesting thing about us too is not that we haven't really paid all that much attention to it until recently. Is as many people as listen to us, we can't get it to translate on social media. That's the one thing. Another interesting thing I've learned about podcasting, or maybe media in general, is that being popular in one doesn't always translate to being popular in the other. So maybe when you say, I like the video, I like the traction I got on the video, maybe it's because you're getting the traction on the video, right? And maybe it doesn't translate so much on the audio portion. Maybe people like the visuals. That's the way they want to consume your content. Just an interesting
Why don't you do video?
We do video. We have all of our video. But why don't we just started focusing on it about 3 months ago. And 3-4 months ago.
And what was I'm sorry, I worded that wrong. I apologize. What was the reason? Because you did tell me earlier that you just started. What was the reason on the holdout to go to video?
We started video early on. When Chrissy and I first started, we were separate because of coronavirus. I had just had.
Oh, doing Zoom.
It was something called Squadcast. That's like Zoom. I know.
I won't do it.
Squadcast is much better than Zoom, but it's not great, right? Yeah. And so we did this Squadcast thing for a while, and we were recording them, and then one day I was like, well, shit, I should put this on YouTube. But I had never done anything for YouTube. I mean, I uploaded some videos, but I'd never really done anything for YouTube until we got a coordinated. When I started getting some followers on YouTube and people were starting to watch on YouTube, that's when I started to get interested in YouTube. But until then, I'd really only thought of it as a podcast, not as really as a video podcast, right? I thought, does someone really want to sit around and watch me for an hour? But turns out some of them do. But still the audience is much smaller.
Now, me personally, I wouldn't listen to just audio
podcast.
only. I mean, if I'm driving, sure, you know what I mean? But I probably would put it on Stern. But if you have a video, I would watch it while I'm on like the treadmill or maybe in the sauna or just bored at home. You know, I'd watch it, or before I go to bed, I'm just trying to get the day off my mind. If you had video, you know what I mean?
You would watch that.
Yeah. But I wouldn't, I personally, and that's not saying that you're not good or anything. I'm just saying that my preference is I like to watch video.
I'm actually more apt to watch video myself than I am to listen to a podcast. If I don't know the podcast already and I don't like it already, I certainly will watch the video. If they have a video, I will watch that first. But they don't always, it doesn't always translate, right? Because you're popular on Instagram doesn't mean your podcast is going to be popular. Because your podcast is popular doesn't mean your video is going to be popular. It takes a real coordinated effort to try and push on all three of those at the same time: audio, video, and social, and try and get those to be popular. We have, whatever we're about to.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is you already have this massive audio following.
Yeah.
If you do video, what do you think? They're not going to watch the video?
They're coming over.
Right.
Yeah, now that they are.
They're going to come over with you, right?
Yeah.
So now you have more traction, more influence.
Yes.
And because all of these people on the audio, they're going to follow your video for sure.
Yeah.
The risk you take is you might lose some of the audio or the
audio downloads.
The audio downloads, which could affect your third party.
We thought about that, but it's like 6 1 half dozen in the other.
Yeah.
If they go over to YouTube and I can monetize YouTube, at the end of the day, the audience is the audience size, right? And someone out there, if that's my strategy for making money, or your strategy if you're a podcaster out there, if that's your strategy, it doesn't matter whether the audio is on your. If you have a podcast and you make a social media presence that's big, a video presence that's big, or whatever, it doesn't matter, because it's the cumulative audience that matters.
You hit them all.
Yeah, you hit them all.
And your business already has the brokering of third-party sponsors for YouTube and everything else, so you wouldn't even have a problem.
They'll do it, yeah.
So then you hit all platforms.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I agree with you.
All right, so here's this is your personal
That's
one.
my personal one.
This is your personal one. So tell me what some of these pictures are.
Oh, I don't know. I'm fucking around. These are reels, I think.
Right. Scroll down.
With them. Yeah. This is just me being stupid. Here's interesting. So this is the guy, Eddie Brill's coming in here.
Right here?
Yeah.
Click on that one?
Yeah, click on that one.
And Eddie Brill will be in here in 2 weeks.
So, I'll let you get into it with him.
Fucking love it.
But Eddie used to book Letterman, the comics on Letterman.
Check that Wi-Fi and make sure it's on Wi-Fi secure. Yeah, it's on multicam. Fuck. That's another thing, the blade. This is an easy blade, though. Let that load, and then we'll start. No, keep it there on Wi-Fi secure. Wi-Fi secure. Just let it load, and then refresh that Instagram. Okay, now click there. Okay, hold on.
Yep.
Well, now we're 1 for 1.
216.
We're 1 for 1. What's it at?
216.
We're 1 for 1 now.
1 for 1.
I'm learning. There's just no numbers now. Look at me go.
Okay, cool.
Let's do this.
All right. So we got Eddie Brill here, right? So
Yeah. So
tell me about this.
So Eddie Brill, who's a friend of mine, we started something called the Comedy Podcast Club inside of Clubhouse, which I'm less active in now than I was a couple months ago. I think everybody is. But Eddie used to book Letterman, the comics of Letterman, for many years when Letterman was at CBS. And Eddie is kind of a comics comic. He's like a mentor to a lot of people. He knows a lot of people, right? So he managed to get inside of Clubhouse. He managed to get Bill Burr, Stephen Wright, all these incredibly, Susie Essman, who's on Curb Your Enthusiasm, all these incredibly famous comics to come and sit down with him for an hour, hour and a half inside of Clubhouse. You're going to be fascinated by the stories that this guy has to tell. I mean, I'm going to pump up, watch that episode. If you're listening to this one still, watch that episode because he has got stories for days.
I bet, especially with Letterman, the whole industry in general, right?
And he's a fascinating character. But some of the best nights we've had on Clubhouse. Have you been on Clubhouse? You've been on Clubhouse? No,
I don't have time for that.
Yeah, I don't have time for it anymore.
Yeah,
I did for a hot minute. I was like, oh, this is the next big thing. And it's not the next big thing.
We have our guy on Clubhouse, so
yeah.
he can do that.
Yeah, we got our friend on Clubhouse. Let him keep an eye on it. If it gets hot again, we'll jump on.
Yeah, let's see what else he's got done.
When we did that Bill Burr room, there were 7,000 people.
I bet
in that room. It was crazy.
Bill Burr's big.
He's huge. I think he's probably the biggest comedian, maybe besides Chris Rock. Chappelle.
Way bigger.
Yeah.
Chappelle, Chris Rock, Kevin Hart.
Mm-hmm. You know,
he's in the top 10. Let's just say.
You know, I just spoke to for a couple of hours on Clubhouse.
Stay on here.
One night was Dane Cook.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, remember that guy?
Yeah, kind of faded out.
Yeah,
What's the burger?
He's making a comeback. Look at what it says. It says Burger Inn, 100% pure beef.
Click on that one.
So I found that to be extremely interesting because it's like, what else would it be?
Yeah,
what else would it be?
Yeah,
pure beef? Would it be artificial beef? Would it be?
I get it. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, it's right. So even your personal page, that even plays into the comedy.
It's all comedy.
It's
all
of what you got.
Yeah.
All right, scroll down.
That's my wife.
You saying fuck you to the mask? You don't say it, I'll say it.
No.
Fuck you, mask.
No, that's actually back in we're in Mexico driving dune buggies, and they had us wear those masks. And then there's my sour cream container full of weed.
And then you got a cat. Where the fuck am I? Click on is that a cat?
Yeah, there's a cat.
Cat needs
I'm sure it was the moment you wake up from a drunk nap. That's so long ago.
That is pretty funny.
Yeah, it is funny. Yeah.
You know what? Like, I'm not really a cat guy.
Me neither.
But I'd fuck with that cat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Cool cat.
And then go over to the commercial break. The link. How do you say it?
It's a link tree.
Yeah, I'm new to the link tree.
So link tree is what you do. You put it on Instagram.
Yeah, I have it now. Yeah, but go ahead, explain this for people watching.
So you can get it. I think they're free. Or maybe pay $5.
It's like $5 or something. Yeah.
So Instagram, unless you have 15 or 20,000 followers, does not let you put links inside of Instagram. Not on your comments, not on anything. You have to put it only in your profile, and I think they only allow one. If I'm not
on
mistaken.
Instagram.
On Instagram.
Okay, so say that again. Because I didn't know this.
Unless you have a certain amount of followers on Instagram, you cannot embed links anywhere in Instagram except for your profile, right? Mm-hmm. So your profile, so people will say link in the profile, right? That's or link in the description. That's why they always link in the profile is what they say. So, we have nowhere close to 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 followers on YouTube. So what most people do is they get a link tree. It's one link that has all your other links. So you don't have to, it makes it easy for people.
So you're not tied down to that square where you need, what is it, 20,000?
I think it's 20,000 if I'm not mistaken.
Go to tab 1 and type in how many followers do you need on Instagram to post a link in a post?
Link in bio.
Yeah.
That's what they say, right?
They say link in bio. Yeah. Say how many Instagram
followers? How many Instagram followers
to use links? Then just put to use links.
To use links. All right, don't look. What do you think? Look at don't look and cheat.
I'm gonna say 15,000. I'm gonna go in between my 10 and.
I'm gonna say you looked.
Sorry.
Cheater.
No,
Cheater.
I already said my number. What did you say?
You said 15.
I said 15.
I'm gonna say 25,000.
No.
It was 10.
10?
10,000. There you go.
Well, I can tell you right now that's bullshit because I got 10,000 and
you can't make links in it.
I can't post a link in a post. No.
Maybe do you have to get verified or some shit? I'm not sure.
No.
The thing about Instagram
what
is,
are they,
I don't know.
Instagram says
the thing about Instagram is, I don't know.
Wait, okay. So Instagram says you've got to have 10K followers in order to be granted clickable links. In order to get the Instagram swipe up feature, no, we're talking about posts.
Yeah, but I think that it's like when you do Instagram, and listen, my wife is the Instagram genius.
Yeah.
I'm not, right? But when you do Instagram, if you have a certain amount of followers, you can, they put a link in the picture, but what they really do is you swipe up. And when you swipe up, it takes you to the to whatever page, right? So it'll, if you're selling something and you swipe up and it takes you to Amazon or whatever.
Oh, so when you say link, you mean... I think I'm misunderstanding you. Like
any link, like you can't put a link in a comment. It won't be clickable. You can put a comment.
Yeah. So for 15,000 followers, from 0 to 15, I can put like HTTP.
Yeah.
MSCS.
But
Media,
they would have to write it out. Yeah.
But they'd have to copy and paste it.
I don't even think you can copy.
That's right. I don't even think you can copy. But you'd have to look at it.
Look at it
and type,
which is a huge pain in the ass.
It's a huge pain in the ass. So you're saying. They're saying 10,000.
Yeah.
I don't think that's right because I can't do it. I just posted one yesterday.
Interesting.
And whatever, there's a certain amount where that link will be clickable is what you're saying.
Where you can put embed clickable links because now I guess
huge.
They trust you or whatever. That's huge.
Yeah.
Right? It's huge. So we're nowhere near there, and most people don't have 10,000 followers. So Linktree is a smart service that is simply just a landing page for other links. That's it. It's just a landing page for other links. So we put our YouTube there, we put our Twitter, we put our our Apple Podcasts. Or
what's fucked up?
I've
been doing SEO and marketing for 15, 16 years. That's my bread and butter.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know what Linktree was until a guy named DJ Legato. Anthony, extremely smart guy.
Yeah.
I mean, you think DJ... Guy's bright.
Yep.
Bright dude.
Yep.
And he put me onto Linktree. And this is like 6 months ago.
Wow.
I didn't even know what it was. And it, like you said, it's a great way to use that as a way to push. But like I didn't even know what it was. So I would see a Linktree. I don't know what the fuck this is. Why would I click on that?
Yeah.
So it's a tough, so for me, I don't know how effective that is. But,
Listen,
it's a way around the 20,000 followers.
20,000 followers.
Right.
That's right. And we do get, not a ton of traffic, but we do get traffic from that Linktree to our whatevers because I can see it on the Google Analytics, right?
However, people call me an idiot because I'm the only one who doesn't know. So my opinion and my thoughts should not be even considered because I'm the moron that didn't know what it was.
Well, I didn't know what it was either until my wife told me.
You don't know what Linktree is? Yeah. And I'm like, Linktree. Well,
I know my wife was talking about it a couple months ago, and I'm
I don't want to buy any trees.
Yeah,
no
trees. Sounds like a scam.
Yeah, it sounds like a scam.
That's what I told my wife.
So right now, with the state of podcasting, YouTube, everything else, do you think it's a good time to get in? Do you think it's getting oversaturated? Do you think unless you're going to take it, like you said, completely professional, put everything you got into it, and then try to make money with it. Unless you're 100% in, stay away. Or if you just want to do it for fun, no problem. But if you're looking to do it for financial gain, would you say don't even bother unless you're going to go 100%?
No, I don't say that. I don't say that at all. I say that if you think that podcasting is an enjoyable medium for you, and you like audio, and you like to dick around with your friends or whatever, you're interested in a topic, you want to cover a murder case, that's very popular, you want to educate people, you want to talk about mental health, whatever topic it is that, razzes your rizzle, whatever you want to do, turn on the microphone. It's as simple as that. Turn on the microphone, put an audio file together. You can do it basically for free. All you need is a microphone. That's it. That's all you need. There are free hosting services and all this other stuff. If you and do it for however long you feel like doing it. If you have the impression that if you're not Conan O'Brien or Dax Shepard or Joe Rogan or Michelle Obama or Oprah Winfrey, if you have the impression that you are going to turn on the podcast and within 10 episodes you are going to be, Spotify is going to be knocking on your door, you are sorely mistaken. Like every other pipe dream in life, it doesn't work that way unless you are the one in a kabillion that gets plucked from obscurity and rides a rocket ship to the moon. And that does happen, right? But that's just like the kid playing, yard ball in Cuba who all of a sudden is pitching for the Yankees.
Yeah, right.
10 years from now.
The odds are like being the pitcher for the Yankees.
Correct.
If not worse. You probably got better odds being pitcher for the Yankees, right?
I might agree with you. You have to take it seriously, right? And you have to, I say this to all of my clients, potential clients, friends, whoever I'm consulting with about podcasting. You have to be found if you want to be heard. You have to be found if you want to be heard. And how do people find you? They find you when they're listening to other podcasts. And in order to do that, it's going to take time, energy, and effort, or money. So you better be prepared to do some or all of those things if you want to break through the clutter. Because while it may seem like the world is awash with podcasts, the truth is the world is awash with podcasts that had one episode or 2 episodes or 4 episodes or are about to have their last episode, because people realize after 5 or 6 episodes, here's an interesting statistic. Most podcasters never make it past episode number 7. And I believe this is because that pipe dream doesn't come true. It's like anything else in life, right? I'm going to be a professional skateboarder at 43 years old, right? Or, I'm going to kayak in the Olympics. I'll go get a kayak and all this other stuff. We get passionate about our pipe dreams. We spend a lot of money and a lot of time preparing. And then when it comes down to the hard work, we're like, fuck that. You mean I got to do leg day 3 days a week, in order to be a professional kayaker?
You know what they say. Good things take time.
I agreed.
And if you're not doing it. So from an outsider's perspective, let me see, like, if I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
If you're just doing it for fun, go have fun and have laughs. If you're doing it to make money, if you're doing it to one day be somewhat like a Joe Rogan or these, heavy hitters, understand that it's not going to happen overnight.
Yeah.
It's going to take years. And if you don't have some financial at the moment, don't invest in it now.
Yeah.
Because you got to have the finances to do it right. Okay. You got to have the content, the time.
Yeah, you're right.
And you can't just jump on and blah, 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 and you're going to take off. There's a lot of steps to it. And if you're going to do that, I'm just saying what you said to me, what I take. Understand that you may do 7 episodes and get 15 views or 15 hits.
Probably
But if you keep at it and you're passionate about it, then there's a good chance that at some point you might take off. But that could be 10 years from now, because you have to remember that these guys, not you, I mean, you sparked quick, but you also worked at Clear Channel, iHeartRadio. You had a lot of things going in your favor to lead into this, where someone else who doesn't, it's going to take a little bit longer. You know what I mean? So you have to have patience, and it's not going to happen in 7 episodes. You got to be in for the long haul with this shit.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's a long, slow ground game, right? And it's ground and pound, and you got to be ready. And you said something very wise. Even if you want to invest in your podcast, even if you're like, I'm going to take Brian's advice, I'm going to go buy billboards day one, right? I wish I had never done it day one, and I'll explain why. If my content sucks, it doesn't matter how much money I pump into my podcast. No one's going to fucking listen, right? And so for the first 30 episodes, and this is just my number, my own personal number, we were just fumbling around in the dark trying to figure out what worked. And most of it is trash. There's some of it, there's moments of, it's coming together, but most of it's trash because, like anything, like you said, it takes time. Get your rhythm together, figure it out, get comfortable with your equipment, get comfortable with your content, have a recording schedule, be consistent. If you say you're going to be there Tuesday, be there Tuesday, right? If you say you're going to publish on Wednesday, publish on Wednesday. And, once you feel like you're like, oh, okay, or you're getting good feedback and people are like, man, it's great, it's wonderful, your inner circle, your outer circle, they're all, for real, giving you real, hey, this is good. Then pour gasoline on the fire, right? Then go for it. But it still could be 10 years before you reach 1 million downloads.
Right.
And then there's the larger likelihood is you could be 10 years and never reach 1 million downloads.
Right. And you have to understand that getting into it from what you're saying. And also you have to take into account the amount of research that you need to do, whether you're interviewing people or like I'm doing, or like what you're doing where, you have your co-partner, but you still got to sit there and research what you're going to talk about and come up with the content and so on and so forth. So it's not just a shoe-in and a peanut job. I mean, it's hours.
How many hours per show besides the just, you and I sitting here for whatever, 2.5 hours now? Yeah. How many additional hours do you put in?
Like this particular show. So you figure it's 2.5, I got the multicam system, so I don't really need to edit much anymore. So that takes out a lot. But when you're first starting out, you're not going to have that kind of, if you do great, but the percentage are not going to have that kind of money to go get, it came in stages with what I did. But you're going to spend you're going to spend 2-3 hours researching. Then you're going to spend an hour doing the actual shoot. Then if you don't have a multicam system, you're going to be editing. So that's, if the show's an hour and you're good and you can learn Final Cut, which isn't easy. I stayed up 3 days straight almost learning it because I refused to pay somebody to do it. Then if the show's an hour, you're going to spend 2 hours in Final Cut. So each time you do it, you need a good 6 hours to get all combined with me. Then if you're really going to make it pop, you're going to push it to LinkedIn. You're going to push it to, Spotify. You're going to push it to Facebook, Twitter, all of it, all the way around the line. So each episode is not only the time that you're filming, you have to incorporate the research. So I would say just on average, it's minimum 4 hours, and that's just if you're doing a 1 hour episode. So it's a lot of time, a lot of research, or it's going to be trashed.
I'd say for every hour that I spend in the studio creating actual content, by the way, that doesn't include it. I'm not a perfectionist. I'm persnickety about what I put out there. If someone's new to my podcast, I want them to hear something good that's interesting to them. So if Chrissy and I record an hour of trash, we're better at it now. I used to throw every fourth episode, I'd throw it in the trash. Every third episode, I throw it in the trash. I'd say it's just not good. Like, let's just redo it. Why? If that new guy or girl who's coming to the commercial break and listening for the first time this week, do we want them to hear that? Maybe our listeners who have been with us since the beginning will suffer through this episode. But what about that new person who's going to give us 15 minutes of their time and then they're never going to show back up? So for every hour that we actually, get out there to the world, there could be 5, 6, 7 hours worth of work that went into that. Yeah. And so it's a time-consuming labor of love.
I would say on average myself, I do longer ones, but I don't have to edit now because I have that machine. I would say 6 hours overall, each one, if not more.
I believe
because then you got to do clips and everything else. So it's a good 6 hours an episode, period. Yeah. No matter, and you got to be willing to do it and be consistent, like you said.
Absolutely.
And last two questions, and I'll let you get out of here. What do you think of Clubhouse? And explain to people what Clubhouse is that don't know, because it's an invite only. And
well, it's not invite only anymore.
Oh, so, it's not. Well,
now they've opened up to the world.
Last time I checked, it was.
Yeah. Last time you checked, it was probably popular too.
I think Boziak was on it, or Matt Cox. Somebody was on it.
Boziak, Cox, Sherman. They're all they're all out there in the Clubhouse. Listen, I don't want to. I think it's popular right now. It's in vogue to beat up Clubhouse. But I'll say this. Clubhouse is like, imagine back in the 90s, 80s and 90s, they had the chat lines you would call. You pick up the phone, you'd call, you'd be with a bunch of like-minded people talking about whatever, sex, dogs, kittens, parties, whatever. A bunch of people in a room yelling and screaming at each other, if you were ever on one. Then you would go into then in the 2000s, you would go into the messaging chat rooms. You'd have a bunch of people chatting away, via text, blah, 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 blah. So two guys back in the early of the pandemic, they had prototyped on an existing software platform to have an audio application. So you open up the app. There's a bunch of circles with profile pictures, right? You go into a room there's varied topics. It could be on podcasting. It could be on sex. It could be on art. It could be on NFTs, altcoin. You click on whatever room you're interested in. Up comes a page with these profile pictures, and there's a line. On the top of that line is the stage. That's where the people can talk. They have open microphones. They can talk. There tends to be a moderator moderating the room, or 2 or 4 or 8. Those people are in control of the stage. They can push people up. They can bring them down, whatever. And so a bunch of people get together and talk about millions of different subjects. It's called social audio. So Clubhouse became super popular during the pandemic because we were all bored and at home looking to spend time on a new fancy thingamajig, right? We all got fascinated by this social audio. You didn't have to dress up. No one was looking at you through a video camera. You could just turn it on and listen, raise your hand if you were interested in speaking, get up there, you'd get followers, there's comedy, whatever.
And there actually is a thing where like you raise your hand and
yes.
like, I know Boziak was like Robert Downey Jr. came on.
Yeah.
And he kept, I don't know if it was Boziak, Cox, or whoever the hell else was on it. And there's actually a fucking thing where you raise your hand like you're in school. It's fucking crazy.
You raise a little, you press a button and it raises your hand.
And I'm like,
right?
what the fuck is this?
It's crazy. And then the moderator sees that and they can either bring you up or push you down, right?
But hey, these like Downey Jr. gets on, everybody gets, when I saw it, all these like
what is this, like a cameo?
It's called Clubhouse.
It's called Clubhouse. And so it's just a bunch of people in a bunch of different rooms. Right. Talking about a bunch of different subjects. I'll show it to you in just a minute here. But And so just imagine you scroll through a bunch of subjects, rooms, and there are so many of them, it's not even funny. Different languages, all this other stuff. You click on a room if you're interested. You go into that room. There you are in the audience, quote unquote. You're down below that line, right? You're in the audience. You're listening. If you're interested or if you want to say something, the moderator can either ask you to come up or you can raise your hand and then they'll say yes or no.
Actual show.
So for instance,
it's live. It's live audio.
So reality kind of thing.
No. So it's like this. So
reality to the ears.
No. So look. So it's like this. So Bryan opens up a room, right? He waits for people to come to the room, but Bryan is Bryan. But there's people like Martha Stewart, Robert Downey Jr., Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp had come on the time he was here, and you can go to that room. Now you can listen and hear what Johnny Depp has to say. He's taught. Well, not what he has to say. What he's typing.
Oh no, what he has to say. No, it's live.
Or he's live.
Yeah, he's live.
And then you can.
Yes.
And then you can raise your hand, and then if he picks you, right?
Yeah.
Then you can ask him a question and so on and so forth. So
it's really him.
It's really him.
Yeah.
So now, what's your take on that?
I think that social audio was interesting when we were all. It's here to stay. It's not going anywhere. But it was interesting to everybody when we were in a pandemic and we all just wanted to get together and talk about things, right?
Yeah.
Clubhouse.
Do you have to pay?
No, you don't.
Celebrities just volunteer to do this?
They do. And I think that's the part of what was so attractive when this first started is there was a bunch of celebrities in there and you could be on a stage with a celebrity like Dane Cook or Bill Burr or whoever. I was on stage with Bill Burr, Stephen Wright, Dane Cook, all these people I was on stage with moderating these rooms. And that's exciting to think that I'm sitting here talking with whomever, right? The challenge with Clubhouse is it gets taken over by petty little gangs of people, right? So, if you don't have this many followers, then you're not popular. And if you're not invited to this room, then you're not popular. It just becomes much like anything else in society. It becomes cliquish and weird. And if you're in the in crowd, you're in the in crowd. And if you're in the out crowd, you're in the out crowd. If you're down at the bottom in the audience, you're always going to be down at the bottom in the audience. And everyone else is just trying to get up top.
Did you notice that when Apple kicked it off, when they stopped the invite only, shortly after Apple, they either kicked it off or still there, but it was exclusive to Apple, wasn't it?
It was iPhone. Yeah, it was iPhone. Correct.
It was exclusive to iPhone.
Now, then they made it Android.
See, they should have just stayed with what they were at and invite only, because that kept it
popping.
That kept it popping, and that kept it like regulated where, like you just said, it's just not a bunch of bullshit. Now everybody and their mother crazy, and I think that.
And by the way, now Spotify, Facebook, Twitter, and 100 others that are right behind them all now have their own platforms that are exactly the same as Clubhouse.
Too late, in my opinion.
I think Clubhouse. Someone used to say this about technology, about Silicon Valley to me, and now I believe it. You don't have to be the best. You don't have to be the fastest. You don't have to be the richest in Silicon Valley. you have to be the most popular. That's it. That's it. That's all you have to be is most popular. And Clubhouse is, to me, became like high school. You were either in or you were out, right? And even if I might have been considered in by some people, I didn't like the cliquishness of it. It'll be around forever. Clubhouse is not going anywhere. They're sitting on $4.5 billion worth of cash. They're hiring like crazy. Yeah, they have a $4.5 billion valuation. And by Andreessen Horowitz, the same people who funded Facebook have funded them. They're not going anywhere. They're sitting on a pound of cash, right? But Spotify is coming for them, and Spotify is a huge ecosystem of already existing. Facebook, Twitter, they're all coming for them, and they'll all have their own individual little platforms. I spent an immense amount of time believing that I could build more of a bigger, larger podcast audience, or start a show that would be complementary to the podcast and be popular on Clubhouse, to no avail, to no end. Didn't matter how many followers I had. It just was useless. It was useless, and I was wasting hours and hours.
Yeah.
Essentially just listening to other people bitch.
Yeah, it happens. And then last question, and then I'll let you out of here. Yeah. I'm surprised that Spotify has this kind of money. Did they merge with somebody?
No, they've been doing well for a long time.
Have they?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm new to that end.
Yeah. So Spotify's been doing well for a long time. Pandora used to be the big boy in the space. Pandora was the first streaming radio service platform that was paying artists per play. But Pandora had one Achilles heel. Even though they had a better discovery service and recommendation service, and I think they still do, they had one Achilles heel, is that at first they refused to do on demand. In other words, you could go to Pandora and you could say, play the Tom Petty channel, right? Or the whatever. Play Pearl Jam's Black, the song, play that channel, the Black channel, right? And then it would play a bunch of music that was very similar to Pearl Jam's Black or to Tom Petty or to whatever. But they wouldn't let you just go and play the song Black over and over again, because they felt it was a bad revenue model for them. They would have to pay one artist a bunch of money, so they needed to mix it up with a bunch of songs, right? Or whatever their reason.
To even it out. Just
to kind of, and they were thinking like radio, right? Spotify came along and said, fuck that. Play whatever song you want to whenever you want to. Play it over and over again.
And that was the
difference. Gives a shit. That was the difference. And so Spotify quickly became kind of the more popular version of Pandora. Now, Pandora is still extremely popular, owned by SiriusXM. Spotify is owned independently. They don't pay artists well when they play music, but that's always going to be the gripe. But Spotify has been sitting on a ton of cash. They made a huge play for podcasts. They know that they want those 110 million Joe Rogan listeners. They want them overpaying $5.99 a month for premium Spotify.
Do you think that Spotify will end up being the biggest one in the industry?
In the podcast industry? Yeah. I think Apple and Spotify will beat each other up. Unless Apple starts paying for exclusive content, which some people think they will, some people think they won't. My thought is they might have to. That Spotify will become the biggest because they will have the biggest names over there. They already do. And there doesn't seem to be signs of them slowing down. They're making a big play for podcasts.
Agreed. And I don't see Apple making that move.
They're agnostic, and they've always been agnostic. And so they've made the choice to stay out of the content creation game. They want to be the publisher. They want you to give it to them, and they'll, without making any adjustments to it, they just say, just give it to us. We'll keep a master directory of all podcasts anywhere. We'll suck the podcasts up on the RSS feed. We'll spit them out in a nice, neat little package called Apple Podcasts. We've always been that way. That's how it's all started. Let's just continue to do it that way. Spotify says, fuck that. We're the HBO Max of podcasting, and we want you to come here for the best podcasts, right? So does SiriusXM, by the way. So does Pandora. I mean, everyone's doing the same thing. Apple may have to do that.
Right. So I think they'll wait. I agree with you. Yeah. I think they'll wait. I think they'll milk what they're doing now until they have to make a move, and then when they do make a move,
it'll be big.
It will be big.
It'll be big. Yeah.
And then they got the cash stack.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And then they can go pull whoever the fuck they want, whenever the fuck they want.
I did the math, and that show, not Dax Shepard's show, but the other one with the three guys.
Barstool?
No, not Barstool. I can't remember what it's called, but there's 3 guys. They're all famous. One of the guys was in Arrested Development. You know what I'm talking about?
No.
The Arrested Development. Anyway, they paid similar to what they're paying everybody else, $20 million a year, blah, 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 blah. Based on publicly available data that may or may not be exactly accurate. I did the math. And Spotify paid them $1 per listener per year. $1 per listener per year. That's a shit ton of money, man.
Fuck yeah.
If they pay me $1 per listener per year, I'd be really happy. I would certainly quit my real estate.
And you agree that Rogan made the right decision going out of there?
I think he made the right decision because I think Rogan is a hands-off guy. I don't think he wants to have a big company. I think he wants to be a content creator. I don't think he likes, my opinion of him is he doesn't like strings, right? He doesn't. He liked it. He liked having his producer over here, a couple guys in the back cutting up clips, and that's it.
And that was it.
He didn't want sales teams and all this other stuff. But if Rogan would have done the following, he would have said, I'm going to continue to give you 1 hour of the show free to everybody, right? But if you want to listen to the back half of it, I'm just going to ask you to pay me 99 cents a month, right? 99 cents a month times what some people estimate might be 30 million unique listeners. Just do the math on that.
Yeah.
He could have made $300 million easy.
Agreed.
Or sold more ads or whatever. Yeah.
Agreed.
The guy could have been mega rich and people would have done it.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not all 30 million, but 15 million of them would have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Agree with you.
Yeah.
Well, anything else you want to plug?
Man, I really appreciate you having me down here. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Oh, thank you for coming. You've schooled me on a lot of things that
and you schooled me on some things.
I had no idea because, like I said, I'm new to the audio end of it.
Yeah.
And congratulations on all your success.
Congratulations on your video success.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And your real estate's great.
Yeah.
You know, you're doing a lot of things, and you seem to be doing well and working hard, and I'm happy for you, man. You're a good guy.
That's the way us Irish and Italian kids from Chicago are. We got to do a bunch of stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just keep working. Working.
Keep filling the hole with sand, Brian.
Keep filling the hole with sand.
Eventually, you'll be able to walk over it.
All right. So make sure you subscribe.
Yep.
Plug all your stuff.
www.tcbpodcast.com. You can find us youtube.com/thecommercialbreak. At The Commercial Break on Instagram. And if you're interested in hiring our firm to help you out with your audio or video podcast, you can go to weekendpodcaster.com and drop us a line.
Okay, so go to weekendpodcaster.com.
Yep.
Right? And what, you're sending go to contact?
Yeah, you go to contact us and send in the contact form if you want more information or you want to contact us. We'll be happy to
get a quote. And
we'll talk to you for a couple hours about your podcast and we'll see if it's a good fit. And,
Great.
And listen to the show, tcbpodcast.com, every Tuesday and Friday.
And all this will be in the description. Hopefully, I can figure out how to get a link in Instagram that you can click and it's not work. You just look at it and have to remember it when it's a weird link. But everything will be in there. Brian's a great guy, very generous and very kind man.
Thank you.
And it was a pleasure. It was a very pleasure.
I can't wait to do it again.
Well, we will.
All right.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, buddy.